Chapter 340. Yun Shang's magic scepter had 2 magic soul stones embedded in it. She was only an archmage. How could she break through the restriction outside the geocentric smelting cave and enter the cave with her abilities? Moreover, she looked like she had been in the cave for a few days. The geocentric smelting cave was the name of this place. Yun Shang thought to herself. She did not expect her guess to be true. Yun Shang had a better impression of Yuan Bupo since he was generous enough to give away his clothes. I didn't want to be here either. A few days ago, I accidentally entered a cave and activated a magic formation inside. I was already in the cave when I woke up. I've been trapped inside for a few days, and I've been looking for an exit. I only came here today because I heard people's voices. Yun Shang was telling the truth. Yuan Bupo was no longer suspicious when he saw how calm she was. Yuan Bupo thought to himself, she doesn't look like she's lying. It's just that she's been in the cave for a few days. That's what I'm looking for. Yuan Bupo quickly asked, Miss, did you encounter anything in the cave? Or did you find a red lotus flower? There's nothing in the depths of the cave, but I've seen the lotus flower you mentioned. It's not far ahead. Yun Shang knew that she couldn't hide it. Fortunately, she had already plucked all the lotus flowers in the pond a few days ago, leaving only the lotus flower with a bud. That's great. The ancient records are real. There's really a karmic fire lotus in the geocentric smelting cave. Yuan Bupo could not wait and immediately went to look for it. Sure enough, after a few steps, he found a karmic fire lotus standing gracefully in the lotus pond. However, in the time it took for Yun Shang to leave, the karmic fire lotus that had yet to bloom had already bloomed. The karmic fire lotus that looked like a flame was waiting to bloom in the scorching lava. The lotus seed pod inside was bright red. The lotus seed pod was like a ruby that was crystal clear. Brother Bupo, are you saying that we can find the karmic fire beast with this thing? Shin Mimi looked at the lotus flower carefully. Other than the fact that its color was slightly different from ordinary lotus flowers, there was nothing special about it. In Grand Emperor City, there were many exotic flowers and herbs. There were dozens of types of lotus flowers. Among them, there was no lack of treasures like colorful lotuses. Compared to colorful lotuses, this karmic fire lotus was very ordinary. What do you know? Your hair is long, but your knowledge is short. The entire body of the karmic fire lotus was a treasure. Its tendons, stalks, and leaves were all saint-ranked herbs. Its roots, the karmic fire lotus, was an excellent medicine for purifying magic souls. However, the most precious part of it is its lotus seed. Yuan Bupo understood the karmic fire lotus very well. Yuan Bupo seemed to be worried about something as he did not continue speaking. Yun Shang was watching coldly from the side. She already knew that Yuan Bupo was definitely waiting for the karmic fire lotus to mature. He wondered what kind of things would be attracted to the karmic fire lotus once it matured. He stared at the ruby-like lotus seed pod without blinking. The lotus head of the karmic fire lotus could bear the karmic fire lotus seed. This kind of lotus seed was also the favorite food of the karmic fire beasts that were rare in the mainland. Yuan Bupo did not know what kind of beasts the karmic fire beasts were exactly. However, he heard that the karmic fire beasts were born as commander-level sacred beasts. When it matured, there was even a chance for it to break through and become a divine beast. Yuan Bupo was a summoner. However, as he was different from the summoners in Grand Emperor City, he could only form a contract with a beast once in his life. Therefore, before he matured, he had never formed a contract with a beast. The way he formed a contract with a beast was very special. It was not the usual magic space contract in the mainland. Instead, it was a contract with pleasure. Yuan Bupo was talented and proud. Naturally, he was unwilling to form a contract with an ordinary beast. Therefore, he spent a lot of effort to find out about the karmic fire beasts that were made from the king of beast kings. Brother Bupo, this woman's background is unknown. When they saw the karmic fire lotus, Yuan Bupo and Shin Mimi had different reactions. Yun Shang's understanding of Grand Emperor City was very limited. She did not know that her unintentional intrusion into the Earth's core smelted cave had directly led to a shocking change in Grand Emperor City. All of this was related to the origin of Grand Emperor City. The people of Grand Emperor City were mostly talented. Compared to the rest of the people in the boundless mainland, among the 30,000 people in the city, close to 80% of them were warriors, magicians, and summoners. The Xian and Yuan clans were the largest clans in the city. Their descendants' talents were even more shocking. However, there were not many summoners among them. They only took up about 10% of the population. According to the rules of Grand Emperor City, the successive castellans of Grand Emperor City were the most outstanding summoners from the Xian and Yuan clans. This was because the first castellan of Grand Emperor City made use of Di Hongsong and his beast to create the legend of Grand Emperor City. Therefore, in the Grand Emperor City, there had always been a saying that only the strongest summoner and the strongest magical beast could truly play the Grand Emperor's 9 movements without either of them. However, since 500 years ago, there hadn't been a single talented summoner in the Yuan clan. On the other hand, the Xin clan had at least one outstanding summoner in their generation, all the way until Xin Wuji's father's generation. Yuan Bupi believed that his talent was much stronger than Xin Wuji and Xin Mimi. He had long made up his mind to become the #1 summoner in the Yuan clan in the past 500 years. Yuan Bupa did this out of selfishness. Firstly, he was not willing to accept a good-for-nothing like Xin Wuji as the castellan. Secondly, he knew that only when he succeeded as the castellan would he have the chance to let his eldest sister, Yuan Shahua, who had been banished from Grand Emperor City, return to Grand Emperor City one day. Back when Yuan Shahua was banished from the city, Yuan Bupo's mother missed her daughter day and night. This made Yuan Bupo determined that one day, he would abolish the old rules of Grand Emperor City. Of course, even Xin Mimi did not know about Yuan Bupo's plans. He would not tell Xin Mimi about his plans. Xin Mimi watched from the side with a greedy look in her eyes. Was that the karmic fire lotus that could lure out the karmic fire beast king? She recalled her father's advice when she was traveling this time. Mimi, remember this. After you leave Grand Emperor City, you must find a way to find Yuan Bupi. I heard that he might be in the geocentric smelting cave. Your brother is a disappointment. The future castellan position of the Xin clan depends on you. Xin Mimi was born in a place like the castellan's mansion. Naturally, she was not that naive. Although she and Xin Wuji were siblings of the same father and mother, Xin Wuji's reputation in the city had plummeted ever since his fiancée, Yuan Shahua, had broken off their engagement a few years ago. As a result, the city lord's mansion's reputation in the city had plummeted. In addition to the rise of the Yuan clan's prodigy, Yuan Bupi, there were rumors in Grand Emperor City that the Yuan clan would replace the Xin clan as the next castellan. This time, if Yuan Bupi really used the Di Hongsong to contract the Hellfire Beast, it was certain that Yuan Bupi would become the future castellan. In the past, Xin Mimi still hoped that Yuan Bupi would marry her after he became the castellan. She did not expect him to confess his love to a lowly Yun clan youth. This made the narrow-minded Xin Mimi very upset. If I used the Di Hongsong to contract the Hellfire Beast, Yuan Bupi would listen to me obediently. Xin Mimi thought to herself. Chapter 341. At that moment, the three of them had their own thoughts. Yun Sheng watched from the side. With her sharp senses from being a healer in her previous life, it was not difficult for her to sense the tension between the two of them. Hey, why are you following us? Are you trying to get your hands on the karmic fire lotus too? Xin Mimi looked hostile. Miss, I'd like to go out too. However, I don't know the way without your company. There's no water and food in the cave. Wouldn't I die if I get lost? Yun Sheng believed that Yuan Bupo would not let her go easily before the karmic fire lotus was ripe. Although she could not figure out what the man and woman from Grand Emperor City wanted to do with the karmic fire lotus, since she was the one who discovered the treasure, she would not sit back and watch the treasure be taken away by someone else. Yuan Bupo thought to himself that the way in was indeed full of twists and turns. If he did not have the map beforehand, he would have gotten lost too. Moreover, he did not want to be alone with Xin Mimi. It would be more comfortable if there was another person. The three of them sat down with their legs crossed with their minds. Yun Sheng had gotten used to the temperature in the cave. Coupled with the icicle toad coat, she soon entered a meditative state. On the other hand, Xin Mimi looked nervous as she kept looking at the karmic fire lotus pond. After midnight, he heard a strange fragrance coming from the direction of the lotus pond. Inside the ruby-like seed pod, there were 8 lotus seeds sparkling like diamonds. It's ripe. Yuan Bupo's movement technique was the fastest. He flicked a gust of wind from the tip of his finger, and a magic element that looked like a wind blade instantly swept up the mature lotus. With a tap of his feet, he soared up high like a great rock, gliding several meters forward. His legs brushed against the churning lava, not fearing the terrifying temperature at all. Clearly, he had come prepared and was wearing a special protective suit. Yun Shang was not in a hurry to attack. She frowned and watched the show from the side. Xin Mimi was also watching from the side. Her eyes shone with the longing of a young girl. Yuan Bupo did not know what to do next after the lotus was attacked. That's strange. Didn't they say that the karmic fire lotus's fragrance would attract the karmic fire beasts when it matures? Why is there no movement at all? Yuan Bupo was suspicious as he looked around. Xin Mimi was also unusually calm. She didn't immediately make a move. She knew that she was no match for Yuan Bupo. In terms of skills, even her brother, Xin Wuji, might not be a match for Yuan Bupo. It turned out that when the last karmic fire lotus was uprooted, the lava in the lotus pond, which was originally more than 10 meters in size, actually slowly shrank and sank. Like boiling water, the lava slowly disappeared, revealing a huge magic array at the bottom of the pool. It was an ancient magic array. Yun Shang, Yuan Bupo, and the others could not understand the seal script on the magic. There were no ripples of magic on the magic array. It was obvious that this was a magic array that had been deactivated for a long time. The 3 of them were all magicians, and at the same time, they were also very intelligent. They all noticed that there was a small circular hole in each of the 4 directions of the magic array: east, west, north, south, southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest. The size of the hole was exactly the same as the size of a karmic fire lotus seed. It was clear that the magic array would be activated as long as 8 karmic fire lotus seeds were placed into the 8 holes. The 3 of them were at a loss when they saw the sudden scene. Yun Shang was sent there by accident. Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi were guided by an ancient book to look for karmic fire beasts. They did not expect there to be another world at the bottom of the karmic fire lotus pond. What happened today was considered a coincidence. There were 2 conditions that had to be fulfilled in order for the magic array that was buried under the lava to see the light of day again. Firstly, the karmic fire lotus had been uprooted. Yun Shang had taken all of the karmic fire lotuses earlier. Secondly, the karmic fire lotus seeds had to be ripe and placed into the 8 holes. Oh no! Just when the 3 of them were in a daze, wondering if they should activate the magic array with the 8 karmic fire lotus seeds, a loud noise came from the other side of the cave. Yuan Bupo's expression changed. He immediately ran to the other side of the cave. The teleportation magic array that he had used to enter the cave earlier had disappeared. The surrounding atmosphere became strange. The 3 of them were left with only one way out. The entrance has been sealed. We're trapped here. It seems like we can only try this magic array if we want to get out, Yuan Bupo said. Yun Shang and Xin Mimi did not object. The 3 of them leaped down and stood on the magic array. Yun Shang was sure that the magic array was the biggest magic array that she had ever seen. It looked like a gigantic millstone. Yuan Bupo dug out the 8 karmic fire lotus seeds and placed them into the magic array. After a series of noises that sounded like a key opening a door that had not been repaired for a long time, a bright light shone from the magic array. The bottom of the pool sank. The 3 of them felt like they had stepped on air. They felt something pressing against their eyes and their bodies were sinking rapidly. After a long while, they finally felt that they had stabilized. While the 3 of them were still feeling dizzy, a series of gurgling sounds were heard, and a black shadow jumped out. The black shadow was so fast that the 3 of them did not notice it earlier. They realized that they were standing in a gigantic magic array. Brother Bupo, look, is that the karmic fire beast? Xin Mimi exclaimed. She covered her mouth and pointed at the demonic beast in front of them. It was a demonic beast that was the size of a giant elephant. Its body was covered in the most terrifying magic elemental suppression. The feeling was even more terrifying than the demonic beast suppression that Yun Shang felt from the centipede ant general earlier. The demonic beast's body was huge. It looked like the lion that Yun Shang had seen before. However, it was 100 times more ferocious than the lion. Its fur was covered in dancing flames. There was a ring of auspicious fire cloud around its neck. It looked up and its eyes bulged. The fangs in its mouth were spitting flames. Its tail was in the shape of a hollow flame. It curled up behind its back, and there were 5 sharp claws on each of its back limbs. At that moment, the demonic beast was squatting on the magic array. Although they had no idea what it was, they were sure that it was not the karmic fire beast. How could a level 9 karmic fire beast have such a powerful suppression? The few demonic beasts in the exquisite beast tower were in a frenzy. I'm the ancient divine beast, fire-devouring Swanee. You ignorant ants dare to trespass into the sacred place of the fire elves. Leave now. The demonic beast opened its mouth and spoke in human language. Demonic beasts were different from humans. Demonic beasts at the level of holy beasts started to have the ability to think like humans. When they reached the peak of holy beasts, they would have the ability to transform into human form. Only then would they have the ability to speak human language and transform into human form. As soon as this magical beast spoke, the faces of the 3 people present turned green. Thank you, matey, and UD for your tips. Thank you, everyone, for your votes. At that moment, the same thought flashed across their minds. Divine Beast. Chapter 342. It was a divine beast. What a bullsh *T legend. Yuan Bupo almost vomited blood. What level 9 karma fire beast? It was a divine beast that could crush them into dust instantly. To the people of the boundless land, a divine beast was equivalent to the archmage god, the martial god among the martial artists, and the Emperor Zhao among the summoners. Even the city governor of the Grand Emperor City only had a holy beast at the peak of the holy beast. The powerful demonic beast's aura engulfed the 3 of them. Compared to the Tao Wu's aura, the aura that Yun Shang encountered earlier on was nothing. The Tao Wu seemed to be about the same age as the Earth's core smelted cave. It must be tens of thousands of years old. Under its aura, Yun Shang felt as though she was petrified and could not move. At the crucial moment, Yun Shang quickly calmed down. She recalled the detailed information about the Tao Wu-type demonic beast in her mind. It was rumored that there was a lion-shaped Tao Wu among the demonic beasts. It liked to grow with lotuses, and lotuses grew with every step it took. It turned out that the pond of karma fire lotuses came about because of that. Yuan Bupo also felt that his body was stiff and could not move. He gulped and said, Lord Tao Wu, we didn't know that you lived here. Please forgive us if we have disturbed you in any way. I'm willing to offer you 8 ripe karma fire lotus seeds. Please let the 3 of us live. Who knew that the Tao Wu would spit out 2 streams of flames from its nostrils that were the size of 2 doorways? Lotus seeds. Ignorant ants, don't mention the lotus seed to me anymore. If it wasn't for those damn karma fire lotus seeds, why would I have a toothache? Toothache? The Tao Wu looked furious. Yun Shang looked at its mouth and saw that the left side of its mouth was swollen. No wonder the Tao Wu was indifferent when it knew that its favorite karma fire lotus seeds were about to ripen. It was because of a toothache. Lord Tao Wu, I'm a doctor. If you have a toothache, I can take a look at it. Yun Shang mustered her courage. Just as Yuan Bupo, who was standing aside, wanted to stop them, he was pulled back by Xin Mimi. She mouthed something at Yuan Bupo. What she meant was to let the ugly woman treat Bayan. That was a divine beast. If it suddenly showed its might, it would burn them all to ashes. It was better to take advantage of the time when the ugly woman was treating Bai and escape through the magic array. Yun Shang didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the thought of seeing the teeth of a mythological beast. But right now, this was all she could do. The Tao Wu seemed to be tormented by the toothache. It thought for a moment like a human and rolled its eyes. It stretched out its front paw and grabbed Yun Shang. Aunt, I'll allow you to take a look for me, but if you have any ill intentions, I'll burn you to death with a single breath of fire. The divine beast Swanee was in a very bad mood. It let out a deafening roar that could tear Yun Shang's eardrums apart at any time. It was said that toothache was not an illness, but it could be fatal. The same saying was applied to the divine beast Swanee. Fortunately, although it was angry, it did not make things difficult for Yunsheng. It was because the Taowu had lived underground for too long. Due to special reasons, it could not leave the place without permission. Therefore, it could not find a way to treat its toothache. Think about it. If a divine beast had a toothache for almost 10,000 years and suddenly heard that a healer had come, it would naturally be lucky. When she heard the deafening roar of the beast, Yunsheng's heart unconsciously thumped. I'm going to die from the pain. Hurry up and treat me. Bai and immediately urged after putting Yunsheng down. Then, the Taowu opened its mouth. The Taowu, who had not brushed its teeth for 10,000 years, almost suffocated Yunsheng with its heavy breath. Yunsheng could only hold her breath and clench her teeth. Half of her body was in the Taowu's huge mouth. Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi were dumbfounded again. They even forgot to carry out their original plan of escaping. This female sorcerer actually dared to climb into the Taowu's mouth. Wasn't this like a lamb entering the tiger's den? But unexpectedly, the Taowu opened its mouth obediently. Yunsheng looked in the beast's mouth for a while, and finally found the reason why the Taowu had a toothache. Speaking of which, it was laughable because the Taowu had a wisdom tooth in the left lower corner of its mouth. The wisdom tooth was inflamed. If it was in the modern era, a shot of anti-inflammatory medicine would be able to cure it. But now, because of the lack of equipment, Yunsheng simply smeared some anesthetic on the scalpel and did a crude local anesthetic to dig out the wisdom tooth. After digging out the wisdom tooth, Yunsheng kept the divine beast's wisdom tooth without any reservation. A divine beast's entire body was a treasure. The wisdom tooth of the Taowu was at least 5 to 6 kilograms. It would be an excellent tool to refine anything. It doesn't hurt anymore. The Taowu suddenly felt refreshed. When Yunsheng almost suffocated and climbed out of its mouth, the Taowu actually let out a happy hum. Yunsheng wiped the sweat on her forehead and spread out her hands. The toothache is cured. Pay the consultation fee. Consultation fee. Oh my God, how greedy was this woman? Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi were petrified again. That was a divine beast. A divine beast that could turn a city into ashes in an instant. This female sorcerer actually asked a divine beast for a consultation fee. Consultation fee? What is that? After the Taowu's wisdom tooth was removed, it instantly felt refreshed. Looking at Yunsheng, it also felt that she was more pleasing to the eye. In fact, it also realized that Yunsheng's scent was very pleasant. It was very similar to the scent of its favorite karmic fire lotus. The consultation fee is a valuable thing. For example, do you have any divine herbs or sacred tools? The lowest you can give me is 1 million or 800,000 purple gold. Yunsheng demanded an exorbitant price. This time, she suffered a great loss in the Earth's core furnace cave. Most of the herbs were melted, and there were also a few purple gold cards. Fortunately, she had given most of the cards to second uncle. Otherwise, she would become the poor Yunsheng again. Moreover, the Taowu was a divine beast. It must have a lot of wealth. Only the heavens knew how heavy the Taowu's breath was. She almost died in its mouth just now. This divine beast looked silly. If she didn't take advantage of it, she would feel sorry for herself. The consultation fee you mentioned, I don't have any of it. I'm not like those greedy dragons. I don't like shiny things. The Taowu tilted its head and thought for a long time. It sadly realized that it was a very poor divine beast. It even despised itself a little. If you don't have consultation fee, then you can be my mount and get a discount. I won't scheme against you. 10 years will do. Yunsheng started to have ideas about the Taowu. Chapter 343. Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi's mouths were wide open, and the expression on their faces could no longer be described as simple shock. Only Yunsheng could think of using a mythical beast as her medical fee for 10 years in the entire boundless land. That won't do. I'm a mythical beast, and you're just an archmage. I can't lower myself to be your mount. However, if you become an archmage in the future, I can consider it. It was rare for Taowu to not get angry. He was a fire elemental magical beast, and compared to the other 3 natural magical beasts, his temper had always been fiery. However, Because Yunshang had helped him heal his teeth and relieved him of the pain he had suffered for 10,000 years, he was surprisingly good-tempered towards Yunshang. How about this? I don't like to owe people favors. You said that you wanted something precious. Right now, I only have one precious thing. If you have it, just take it. Tao Wu's eyes bulged as he looked around Yunshang. The other party's appearance was ruined, but her jade-like eyes that could still shine in the dark night revealed a calmness and composure that did not match her age. Just the aura she had when facing him just now was enough to be comparable to some of the legendary peak powerhouses in the boundless land. The vision of a mythical beast was amazing. How could Tao Wu not see that although Yunshang was just an archmage, she had a rare multi-elemental magic soul? The rarest thing was that other than the aura of a fairy, there were at least two other mysterious forces on her body, especially the jade bracelet on her hand, and the strange force that was faintly fluctuating from her body. Tao Wu could not help but think, could it be that he had been guarding here for 10,000 years, waiting for this female mage in front of him? After saying that, Tao Wu moved a few steps away. The magic array that had been under its body was exposed. This magic array was very similar to the one that Yunshang and the rest used to enter Tao Wu's territory, but there were some differences. The entire magic array was emitting dense fire elemental magical elements. This is the power of the origin of fire. It is a sacred fire seed left behind by the former spirit king of fire. It is called spirit fire. For a few tens of thousands of years, I've always been guarding this place while waiting for someone with intent to come here and obtain this wisp of elven karmic flames. Unfortunately, no one has entered the geocentric cave until now. As a proud divine beast, it had been trapped underground for tens of thousands of years for the sake of the hellfire. His loneliness and helplessness could not be described in words. Are you saying that you want me to try and obtain this elven hellfire? Yunshang's eyelids twitched. The elven hellfire is the fire that all fire mages have dreamed of for a long time. It will be purified as the level of your magic increases. When you become a mage deity, you can even use it to kill everything in the world. Tao Wu's words made the few people present feel tempted. Xin Mimi couldn't wait any longer and said, Madam Bayan, I'm also a magician. My magic realm is even higher than hers. Perhaps I'm more suitable than her to obtain the elven hellfire. Humph, greedy ant. Since you want to try, go ahead. Tao Wu saw the greed in Xian Mimi's eyes, but it did not stop her. Mimi, don't be rash. Yuan Bupo immediately advised Xian Mimi. Both he and Xian Mimi had a high magic cultivation base. However, even they could not see through the so-called elven magic formation. They had no idea what level the magic formation was. However, a magic formation that could be guarded by the divine beast, Tao Wu, must be extraordinary. Yunshang had her concerns too. She had the same thought as Yuan Bupo. Ants, you better think carefully. I'll only give you one chance to choose. Bayan looked like he was watching a good show. In reality, the geocentric cave's existence was not as secretive as the legends made it out to be. Tao Wu had stayed underground for so many years, and there would be some ant-like humans who would come here. Those who were timid would be devoured by Tao Wu. Those who were brave enough would try to obtain the elven hellfire's tinder. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Those who failed, Tao Wu snickered coldly. I'll try. Yunshang thought for a moment and quickly made her decision. Xin Mimi immediately took a step forward. I'll try too. I'll try before you. There was only one chance to obtain the precious elven hellfire. If Yunshang took it first, it would be too late. Xin Mimi walked into the magic formation as soon as she finished speaking. However, there was no reaction from the magic formation after she walked in. How can this be? Where's the elven hellfire? Xin Mimi looked around. Stupid ant. You're cunning. The hellfire won't accept you. Get lost. Tao Wu roared. The fire elven hellfire was the purest tinder in nature. Only those with pure minds could pass the hellfire's test. Xin Mimi did not even have the basic qualification. Naturally, the magic formation would not be activated. What hellfire? How can I not trigger the hellfire? Xin Mimi did not give up. She stomped hard on the magic formation under her feet. She wanted to crush the magic formation. Unexpectedly, The elven hellfire magic formation, which was originally still, spewed out a flame that was as tall as a person. The flame was ferocious. The fire was strong enough to melt any kind of hard or on the continent. Shin Mimi was not prepared for it. Her face was hit by the flame. She let out a cry. Her entire head and face were on fire. If it was not for the defensive equipment on her, she would have turned into a fireball. Mimi, get down immediately. Yuan Bupo was also shocked. Shin Mimi was a member of the Shin clan in Grand Emperor City. He could not sit and watch her being burned alive. Shin Mimi rolled and crawled. Tao Wu leaped into the magic formation and kicked Shin Mimi out. Shin Mimi rolled a few times on the ground. Her body was covered in blood and mud. Although she was treated with magic medicine, her appearance was terrifying. Her originally pretty face was like a smashed persimmon. It was a mess of flesh and blood. Yun Shang could clearly see the bones on her face. Idiot! How dare you challenge the hellfire? Tao Wu looked at her with disdain. This time, Shin Mimi really became an ugly girl through and through. Brother Bupo, my face, my face. I want father to destroy this place. Shin Mimi felt a sharp pain on her face. Mimi, don't cry. I will bring you to Grand Emperor City later. The city lord will definitely have a way to heal your face. Yuan Bupo did not expect the elven hellfire magic formation to have a temper like a human. The people of Grand Emperor City can't heal her face. That's the elven hellfire. It won't be easy to heal the damage caused by the hellfire. Yun Shang did not have much sympathy for Shin Mimi's injury. The people of Grand Emperor City had killed so many Yun army brothers and crippled Yun Songlong's hands. They had been dispirited for so many years. However, as a doctor, she could give them a reminder. Chapter 344. You ugly woman, you're gloating. I knew that you wouldn't dare to enter the fire of elves formation. Otherwise, your ugly face would definitely be burned by the fire of elves until it's 1,000 times uglier than mine. Upon hearing that her face might not be cured, Shin Mimi's first reaction was not to blame herself for her foolish actions, but to regret not letting Yun Shang enter first. Mimi, don't say any more. Apply some ointment first. I'd like to try entering the fire of the elves formation too. Yuan Bupo was not frightened by Shin Mimi's condition. Any mage would give their all to try the fire of the elves formation if they encountered a top-notch fire magic element. Although Yuan Bupo could not find a suitable warsong beast this time, it would be a worthwhile trip if he could obtain the fire of the elves formation. Miss, can you let me try first? Yuan Bupo was much more generous than Shin Mimi. Yun Shang was not in a hurry to return the favor. She nodded and agreed. Yuan Bupo walked into the fire of the elves formation. As soon as he stepped in, circles of fire of the elves emerged from the magic formation. It was different from when Shin Mimi entered. A large amount of fire of the elves formation soon formed a fire circle and surrounded Yuan Bupo. The divine beast Tao Wu watched from the side and thought to itself, this fella is much more powerful than the ant-like human just now. It's just that he's still lacking. Yuan Bupo felt his skin burning as soon as he came into contact with the fire of the elves. He was the most outstanding genius in Dihong Yuan's generation. Although he was a mage, his parents and other elders in the clan were strict with him since he was young. They requested him to strengthen his physique while practicing magic in the elves formation. That was the difference between Dihong City and other places in the mainland. They thought that a good physique would bring a mage a better physique. It would also give them an advantage when practicing magic. Therefore, Yuan Bupo's physique was on par with an ordinary warrior. Even so, the fire of the elves was extremely painful. The fire was tricky. It seeped into his skin bit by bit as if it was going to burn all the blood in his body dry. Yuan Bupo immediately felt his mouth dry up. He felt like he was going to explode. He didn't panic and sat down cross-legged in the middle of the fire circle. He pulled out the purple flute from his waist. He aimed his lips at the flute hole, and a melodious flute note flowed out from his lips. The melodious sound of the flute drifted into the ears of the crowd and unlike the sound of nature. The Dihong song was indeed a marvelous song. Under its influence, the heat of the karmic fire was greatly reduced. Yun Shang glanced over and saw that the flames in the Hellfire magic array seemed to have shrunk a bit. Good lad. You actually know how to use the flute to expel the karmic fire. Bayan watched from the side and could not help but shake his huge head. However, just when Yuan Bupo thought that he was about to subdue the karmic fire magic formation, the karmic fire in the magic formation grew a little taller all of a sudden. Boom! A flame that was on par with Yun Sheng's fiery explosion flew towards Yuan Bupo. The purple flute in Yuan Bupo's hand paused, and he left the magic formation by instinct. Yuan Bupo stumbled as he retreated. There was still fear on his face. It's a pity that you've only passed the first test. Although you have a pure heart, you can't resist the fear of the karmic fire. Bayan sighed. The karmic fire of the elves was spiritual. It needed a master who could accept it completely. Due to what happened to Shin Mimi earlier, Yuan Bupo was subconsciously afraid of the karmic fire. That was why he failed at the last step. Yuan Bupo was ashamed. But don't be too disappointed, lad. I can see that you're quite talented. If you can continue your Dihong song, I believe that you won't be inferior to your ancestors in the future. Bayan had lived for tens of thousands of years. He had met the couple who founded the Dihong city. You and I are fated. After you leave the Earth's core karst cave, head to the ice fire trench. You'll find a warsong battle beast that belongs to you there. Bayan's words made Yuan Bupo, who was initially depressed, feel better. A battle beast that Bayan personally taught must be extraordinary. It was worth it this time. You're the only one left. You've seen what happened to the other two. Do you want to try again? Bayan looked at Yun Sheng. In fact, Bayan was looking forward to Yun Sheng the most. This female sorceress seemed to have the lowest cultivation level among the three of them. She did not seem to care about the other two's setback at all. Yun Sheng nodded. She took a deep breath and held her magic staff tightly. Then, she slowly walked into the karmic fire formation. Yun Sheng walked into the magic formation. Unexpectedly, the magic formation did not react at all. Haha, see that? You're the same as me. The karmic fire of the elves doesn't care about you at all. Shin Mimi, who had medicine on her face, mocked. Her smile froze on her face. At that moment, the magic formation seemed to have been poured with gasoline. The entire magic formation was ignited like a brazier. The fire was at least 10 times more intense than when Yuan Bupo had entered the formation earlier. She's dead. She's dead. Shin Mimi cursed viciously. However, Yun Sheng's expression remained unchanged. She did not even lift her magic staff. The fire spread rapidly on her body like wild grass in a prairie. The fire engulfed Yun Sheng's flesh and blood. Her skin cracked piece by piece while the veins in her body exploded. The pain was enough to break a person down. Even so, Yun Sheng still wore a smile on her face and allowed the fire to engulf her. Bayan's beast eyes shone with a strange light. Yuan Bupo opened his eyes wide. His handsome face was filled with shock. Hee, what a smart little girl. She learned from your lesson and didn't resist the karmic fire at all. She planned to accept the karmic fire's baptism wholeheartedly. However, it's not enough to resist the first karmic fire's trial. Bayan wagged his tail and said with interest. As soon as Bayan finished his sentence, the karmic fire gathered in the magic formation. A sacred fire fairy with fiery red hair and an enchanting figure appeared inside the magic array. The sacred fire fairy's entire body was covered in blazing flames as she looked at Yun Sheng, whose body was in tatters. Ignorant ants! How dare you disturb my sleep? You'll have to pay with your life for this. The sacred fire elf's body was like a tower. She opened her arms and a few fire dragons flew out from her hands and pounced on Yun Sheng. It looked like it was about to swallow Yun Sheng in one gulp. Yuan Bupo stood aside and watched in fear. The female sorcerer did not dodge at all. Was she not afraid of death? Was it really worth sacrificing her life for the tinder? Yun Sheng looked calm on the surface. However, when she saw Yi Hualong appear, she was a little nervous. Just when she was hesitating whether she should dodge the fire dragon's attack, Yi Baiming's deep voice echoed in her mind. It turned out that the two of them had agreed that it was time for their consciousness to resonate. Yi Baiming did not expect Yun Sheng to encounter a situation that was much more dangerous than before in just one day. Little wild cat, Activate your Dharma soul secretly. Don't dodge, Yi Baiming reminded Yunsheng. Yunsheng heard him and clenched her teeth. She did not dodge anymore and activated her Dharma soul secretly. Chapter 345. A five-colored radiance was released from her body. The fire dragon swallowed Yunsheng in one gulp. Just when everyone present thought that Yunsheng would not have a chance to survive, Yunsheng suddenly changed her mind. The Hellfire Fire Dragon let out a painful roar, and its body exploded with a boom. A five-colored radiance pierced through the fire dragon's chest like a sharp blade. The fire spirit's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and a gorgeous smile appeared on her face. She shook her body and turned into a ball of flames, drilling into Yunsheng's magic scepter. A third soul stone appeared on Yunsheng's magic scepter. Everyone looked over and saw that there was a graceful figure inside the magic array. Yunsheng was like a female elf walking out of the forest in the moonlight. She was beautiful and lively. In the fire, Yunsheng's skin fell off quickly. She was like a phoenix bathing in fire. Her new skin was as tender as a baby's. She was like a fire elf in the fire. She was beautiful and enchanting. Her eyes were as black as fine black jade. Her new skin was as tender as a baby's. The most different thing was that there was a flame-shaped brand on her forehead. That flame-shaped brand made Yunsheng lose some of her youthfulness and become more enchanting. The fire elves were the most enchanting and passionate elves among the four elves. Yunsheng was still unaware of the changes on her body. She touched her forehead subconsciously and realized that there was a flame-shaped brand on her forehead. There's an extra thing? Yunsheng frowned. Looks like I should trim my bangs. This thing is too eye-catching. If the fire elves knew that this female sorcerer despised their precious fire elf brand, they would probably fight Yunsheng to the death. It's you, they said at the same time. Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi looked as if they had seen a ghost. They pointed at Yunsheng. The female sorcerer whose clothes didn't cover her body and whose face was covered with ugly blisters was actually the young master that he had met once before. Yunsheng's long hair fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful eyes were beautiful. Her facial features were exactly the same as before. The two of them then realized that she was a man in disguise. You're Yun Songlong's. Yuan Bupo stared at Yunsheng's face. He then looked at her body. She was still wearing his loose robe. Her beautiful legs were swaying in front of him. He suddenly felt heat coming out of his nose. You must have snuck in on purpose. You. Xin Mimi wanted to tear Yunsheng's face apart. Yun Songlong is my second uncle. I'm his niece. Yunsheng touched her face. She realized that she had earned enough this time. Xin Mimi was so angry that her eyes were on fire. Why was she burned beyond recognition after entering the magic formation? Why was Yun Songlong's niece so beautiful? She was even lucky enough to be recognized by the karmic fire? Is this the benefit you're talking about when you're poor? Why don't I feel like I'm recognized by the karmic fire? Yunsheng's words almost made Tao Wu faint from anger. Ignorant human, I'm not going to argue with you. Tao Wu rolled his eyes and spat fire from his mouth. The fire was fierce, but Yunsheng only felt a little warmth. Her skin did not even turn red. Her body only felt a little warmth. Could it be that people who have been baptized by the karmic fire are not afraid of fire? Yunsheng finally realized the magical effect of the fire. Not only are you not afraid of fire, but as long as it's a fire seed, no matter if it's true fire or fire magic element, it won't cause any harm to you. Tao Wu was annoyed. He had seen bad people, but he had never seen such an ignorant person who looked down on the karmic fire of the elves. Not only that, you're a healer. The pills refined by the karmic fire of the elves will be at least one grade higher. Hearing this, Yunsheng raised her hand and adjusted the fire magic element in her body. Unlike before, the fire magic element that appeared in her hand was colorful like a karmic fire lotus. The magic element contained in it was at least 2 or 3 times richer than before. Yunsheng secretly checked the magic element in her body and was surprised to find that her cultivation was about to break through again. The appearance of the third soul stone meant that she was about to break through to become a master mage. Although he was complaining, Yunsheng's appearance still made Feng Wu put down a huge burden. Back then, as one of the 4 magical beasts with natural attributes, He had a duel with someone because he was competitive. Unfortunately, he lost. In the end, he kept his promise and was trapped in the Earth's core furnace for tens of thousands of years. He could only leave when he found someone who was recognized by the karmic fire of the elves. He did not expect to wait for tens of thousands of years. The karmic fire has found its owner. It's time for me to leave the Earth's core furnace. Little girl, and that guy, both of you have been baptized by the karmic fire of the elves. You're considered to be my fated people. I'll give you some advice. The 8 karmic fire lotus seeds that you obtained earlier will be very beneficial to your cultivation in the future. Remember to treasure them carefully. That's all I have to say. I hope we can meet again in the future. The Bayan roared at the sky. Its body leaped into the sky and turned into a ray of fire. This ray of fire was extremely cold. It directly broke open the lava cave and soared into the sky. Tao Wu's figure was hard to find in the blue sky. After Tao Wu left, Yun Shang and the other two were speechless. Xin Mimi tugged on Yuan Bupo's sleeve tightly. She was wary of Yun Shang. However, Yuan Bupo had a complicated expression. He would secretly look at Yun Shang from the corner of his eyes. The three of them followed the path that Yuan Bupo took earlier and walked out of the cave. Along the way, Yun Shang noticed that the karmic fire of the elves' magic formation had dimmed completely. The lava in the entire Earth's core furnace had sunk and the flames had disappeared because of the karmic fire of the elves' core. The cave was no different from an ordinary underground furnace. After walking for about 3 to 4 hours, a cave entrance appeared in front of them. Yun Shang walked out of the cave entrance. She noticed that the sky was already dark. The three of them were at the foot of an unknown mountain. The Earth's core furnace's entrance was hidden. Yuan Bupo spent a lot of effort to find the entrance. Brother Bupo, bring me back to Grand Emperor City quickly. My face is going to be ruined. Xin Mimi touched her face. Although she applied some herbs, her face did not look any better. She was afraid that her face could not be saved like what Yun Shang said. She only wanted to return to Grand Emperor City as soon as possible. Yuan Bupo took a long look at Yun Shang. After finding out about Yun Shang's identity, Yuan Bupo could not calm down for a long time. She was Yun Songlong's niece. Yun Songlong was the main culprit who caused his elder sister to suffer for so many years. Logically speaking, he should be disgusted with Yun Shang. He even thought that if Yun Shang was a man, he would definitely teach her a lesson. However, she was a woman. Moreover, she was a very beautiful woman. As they walked, Yuan Bupo looked at the beautiful figure in front of him. He suddenly had a strange feeling. He hoped that there would be no end to the secret cave. If that was the case, he would be able to walk with her forever. Chapter 346. Yuan Bupo was shocked when he realized what he was thinking. What was wrong with him? Was he sick? When he was in Hong City, he did not discriminate between men and women. Countless girls in the city tried to be nice to him, but he ignored them all. But now, what was going on with this heart-pounding heartbeat? Yes, he must be sick. It was Yun Shang who spoke first. We're out? Your friend's injury will be incurable if it's not treated soon. Let's go our separate ways. After saying that, she didn't even turn back and walked straight ahead. Wait, you. Yuan Bupo felt that his tongue was not working well. He stuttered for a long time before asking, "What's your name?" This was the second time they had met, but he didn't even know the other party's name. Why is he asking for my name now? Yun Shang grumbled in her heart. However, seeing that she was still wearing his clothes, she reluctantly told him her name. Yun Shang. Yuan Bupo muttered to himself. He thought about it and took out 4 karmic fire lotus seeds. Feng Wu had mentioned earlier that the lotus seeds were beneficial to their cultivation. However, he did not know that Yun Shang had consumed a large amount of karmic fire lotus roots in the past few days. The plump and round lotus seed lay quietly on Yuan Bupo's hand. His breathing quickened. Xin Mimi, who was standing aside, widened her eyes. Brother Bupo, why are you giving her the lotus seeds? It's none of your business. I can give my things to whoever I want, Yuan Bupo insisted. Xin Mimi said and looked at Yuan Bupo. She realized that something was wrong with him. Brother Bupo. Xin Mimi suddenly understood something. Her limbs turned cold. Yuan Bupo liked Yun Songlong's niece. Give it to her? Yun Shang did not notice the strange atmosphere between Yuan Bupo and Xin Mimi. Yun Shang wanted the karmic fire lotus seeds. Since Yuan Bupo was being generous, she did not hesitate. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Yun Shang simply accepted it. When she took the lotus seed, her finger gently brushed across Yuan Bupo's palm. Yuan Bupo felt his heart clench and his breathing quicken. Brother Bupo, let's go. Xin Mimi was shocked and angry. She felt that she was about to lose Yuan Bupo. Yuan Bupo remained silent until Yun Shang disappeared without a trace. He then took a step forward reluctantly. Yun Shang walked for most of the night and finally arrived at the nearest town around dawn. She asked around and found out that she was still near the border of Zhou State. She bought a set of clothes in the town and changed into them. After a short rest, she immediately rushed to Southern Cliff Town. Second uncle must be waiting anxiously in town. Also, Xin Mimi had said that Xin Wuji had gone to the Jade Capital, which made Yun Shang very uneasy. Yun Shang's return made the Heaven Expedition Hunting Corps in Southern Cliff Town overjoyed. Young master, you're finally back. When Zhou Quan saw Yun Shang, he was overjoyed at first. However, a hint of worry appeared on his face soon after. Yun Shang looked around and found it strange when she did not see Yun Songlong. Where's second uncle? Logically speaking, second uncle should still be in Southern Cliff Town. Something happened in the Jade Capital. Second uncle rushed back. Zhou Quan's words made Yun Shang's expression change slightly. Did Xin Wuji make a move in the past few days? What happened? Yun Shang's heartbeat quickened. She was afraid that some bad news would come. Zhou Quan stuttered and could not say a complete sentence for a long time. Tang Yu caused trouble. Yi Baiming walked in. Tang Yu. Yun Shang was not in a good mood when she heard the name. When Zhou Quan saw Yi Baiming, he tactfully retreated. It was that prodigal son again. Yun Shang could not be bothered with his life or death. However, she thought about it again. In a place like the Jade Capital, if it was a normal matter, the Yun residents would definitely be able to settle it. Why would she need to personally rush back with Yun Songlong? Yun Shang understood her second uncle. Although he had left the Yun residence after falling out with Old Master Yun because of the Yun family army, he still remembered everyone in the residence. Zhou Quan was unwilling to say it because he was afraid that Yun Shang would be unhappy. Yi Baiming carefully sized up Yun Shang. After not seeing her for a few days, the little wild cat was different again. If the little wild cat from before was like a clear spring, then the current her was more feminine because of the fairy hellfire. Yi Baiming looked at Yun Shang's forehead again and noticed that there was a row of freshly cut bangs on her forehead. I still prefer your hairless appearance. Yi Baiming raised his hand and brushed Yun Shang's bangs aside. When he saw the karmic fire symbol on Yun Shang's smooth and round forehead, a wisp of pleasant surprise flashed through his eyes. It was indeed the hellfire of the fairy hellfire. His little wild cat did not disappoint him. Yi Baiming's fingers were icy cold. When he touched her forehead, he felt itchy. Yun Shang quickly covered her forehead and glared at him. Don't touch me. Yi Baiming glanced at the icicle-toed clothing at the side. Throw it away. Why throw it away? That's the icicle-toed clothing. It's hard to find. When Yun Shang left the cave, she did not have any clothes. Yuan Bupo did not have any intention of asking for the clothes back. Yun Shang originally planned to modify the clothes. It could be considered a treasure. I don't like the smell of other people on you. Yi Baiming snatched the clothes overbearingly and threw it away without hesitation. Yun Shang was flustered and exasperated. When Yi Baiming saw Yun Shang stomping her feet, the displeasure in his heart dissipated a little. Due to the connection between their consciousnesses, he had seen Yuan Bupo's reaction to Yun Shang earlier. How could he let other men covet his woman? He could not even look at her. What's going on with Tang Yu? Yun Shang was scared by Yi Baiming's stare. She could only ask Yun Songlong about the reason for his departure. Although she did not like Tang Yu, the matter involved her second uncle. She was afraid that it was not a simple matter. That brat never changes. A few days ago, he got drunk and caused trouble on the streets with a group of playboys. He raped a woman, who knew that the woman's background was not simple. It involved a well-known hunting troupe in Zhou State. A few days after Yun Shang went missing, news came from Yujing. What kind of hunting troop? Even the Marshal Saint General's residence could not suppress them? Yun Shang looked at Yi Baiming's serious expression. Only then did she know that Tang Yu had caused a lot of trouble this time. It's an old hunting troop, Wolf's Fang. At the same time, it's also one of the few A-class hunting troops in Zhou State. Yi Baiming reported the name. Even though she had not been a hunter for long, Yun Sheng knew how terrifying an A-class hunting troop in Zhou State was. As the saying went, civilians do not fight with officials. However, this did not make sense in the hunting troop in Zhou State. After all, the hunting troop in Zhou State was very influential. In Yujing, if an ordinary citizen got into trouble, the first thing they would think of was not the government, but the hunters. Although hiring hunters would cost some money, their efficiency was much better than hiring the government. Chapter 347. The whole story of Tang Yu's incident was similar to what Yi Baiming had said. Tang Yu was a pervert and had defiled many women in the past few years. Yun Sangxue spent some money to get rid of those people and kept it a secret. He had been scolded harshly by Yun Ba because of the Oriole incident and was punished to stay in the residence for 3 months to reflect on his mistakes. He had just been released a few days ago. However, he still did not change. Especially when he knew that his second uncle was not in the Jade Capital, he became even more impudent. The woman he had forcefully snatched was originally from an ordinary family. After he had raped her, Yun Sangxue had planned to give her a status and carry her into the Yun residence in a sedan chair in order to keep the peace. However, the woman had a strong temper and was unwilling to do so. That night, she hung herself on a tree outside the Yun residence. By the time the guards in the residence found her, the woman had already stopped breathing. When the guards of the Yun residence saw her, they hurriedly told old General Yun. When the woman's family knew about it, they immediately brought people to the Yun residence to make a fuss. This incident had caused a commotion in the city. Tang Yu was so frightened that he did not dare to leave the residence. He had been fooling around in the past, but he had never killed anyone. Yun Sangxue had planned to use his power to get rid of those people. However, he did not know that it would be better if he did not do so. The woman was 15 years old this year, and her father was a scholar with a little reputation in the city. She also had a fiancé whom she had been in love with for many years. They had been betrothed when they were young. That man had left the Jade Capital a few years ago and joined the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. He even had a good position in the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps and was a B-grade hunter in the Corps. That man's fiancée was humiliated and committed suicide outside the Yun residence. When he heard the news, he could not get rid of his anger and went to the Yun residence to force them to hand over Tang Yu. How could Yun Sangxue hand over her precious son? She ordered the guards in the residence to beat up that hunter. When Yi Baiming said this, Yun Sheng already understood. Hunter squads valued glory the most, especially the A-rank hunter squads. Most of them valued reputation and would take good care of every single member of the squad. This time, not to mention the fact that someone was injured, even if the relative of a member was humiliated, the hunting corps would step in. So in the end, this incident turned into a dispute between the entire Wolf Fang Hunting Corps and the residents of Yun. Why didn't old General Yun do anything? What Yun Sheng found strange was that with Yun Ba's temperament, wouldn't he stand out at such a critical juncture? After all, this time, Tang Yu had offended the hunters who had no regard for military law, not the Yun army. Even if old General Yun wanted to intervene, he couldn't. Minister Qian joined forces with a few other civil officials in the imperial court to sue both the Yun residents and Tang Yu. Yi Baiming couldn't help but sigh. The memorial had a total of 30,000 words. It listed all of Tang Yu's misdeeds over the years, including how the residents of Yun had shielded her. No matter how domineering Yun Ba was, he was speechless in the face of such an interrogation in the imperial court. It was a pity that he had a clean reputation and was a senior official of Zhou State for 3 generations, a first-class lord, but in his later years, he had encountered such a disaster. After Yun Sheng heard this, she felt a sense of sadness in her heart. No matter how Tang Yu's incident was resolved this time, the residence of Yun Ba had lost its reputation. It was already an ironclad matter that the residents of Yun had declined, and its reputation had been tarnished. If Yunba and Yun Songxue were willing to hand over Tangyu, there might be a chance for things to turn around. However, the residents of Yun would never hand over Tangyu. The entire incident is full of loopholes. Tangyu was set up by someone, Yun Sheng said lightly. It wasn't that she had never been to the Marshal Saint General's residence. The guards at the entrance were very strict. Even in the middle of the night, they would never allow a weak girl to be hung on a tree outside the residence. In addition, she had just found out that Xin Wuji had also gone to the Jade Capital. She felt that the entire incident sounded suspicious. It's no longer important whether it was a setup or not. What's important is what you plan to do. This is a muddy water. Yi Baiming narrowed his eyes and looked at Yun Sheng. A wild kitten was indeed a wild kitten. She had only heard it once, but she had already seen through the loopholes. Let's return to the Jade Capital first. Yun Sheng didn't make a decision immediately. When Yun Songlong returned to the Jade Capital, a portion of the hunters and the elders had already returned with him. After he rushed back to the Jade Capital, he felt that there was something wrong with the way the commoners looked at them. Just as he arrived at Waning Alley, he heard a melodious sound coming from the general's residence. Outside the residence of Yun, there was a coffin. Dozens of commoners in mourning clothes were crying and wailing. Some even burned paper money outside the residence of Yun. The gates of the general's residence were tightly shut, and a few white lanterns were forced to be hung outside. Not a single guard could be seen outside. The residence of Yun was also shrouded in gloom. Waves of crying and wailing could be heard outside the residence of Yun. Such a situation had been going on for several days. Everyone in the residence of Yun had to take a detour from the back door when they wanted to go out for errands. Even so, they couldn't avoid being pointed at and gossiped about. After the incident with the young master, the entire residence of Yun was under a lot of pressure. In these few days, there were many people quitting their jobs using various reasons such as physical discomfort and old age. Even many of the retainers that the old master had provided for in the residence of Yun had packed up their belongings and left quietly. The old general had yet to fall, but the residence of Yun Songlong was already on the verge of collapse. When the general's residence was still prosperous, those snobbish people had racked their brains trying to sneak into the residence of Yun Songlong to beg for a living. Now that the residence of Yun Songlong was in trouble, they couldn't wait to cut off all ties. Inside the residence, Uncle Yun stood guard outside Yun Ba's room with a worried expression. Ever since the day the old master came back from court and kicked the young master until he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, he had been locked up in the training room. The old master didn't move an inch when they delivered food and water, and they all left. Uncle Yun tried to persuade him a few times, but he was all chased out by the old master. Bang! A rock was thrown through the wall and rolled to Uncle Yun's feet. There was a piece of paper tied to the rock. Uncle Yun didn't need to look to know what was written on the paper. It was full of insults directed at the residents of Yun. From the young master to the old general, if the upper beam isn't straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The lower beam will be crooked. All kinds of nasty words were directed at the old master alone. Did these people forget who led the army to fight when Zhou State was in turmoil and the people were displaced? Who was the one who emptied the entire residence of Yun Songlong's wealth to buy military provisions to support the front lines? Uncle Yun sighed and lowered his head to pick up the rock on the ground. Just as he bent down, he saw a pair of shoes in front of him. The shoes were covered in dust. Uncle Yun raised his head to look. When he saw Yun Songlong clearly, he excitedly shouted toward the training room, "Old master, the second young master is back." After the incident at the residence of Yun, the third miss held a grudge against the old master for kicking the young master. For the past few days, she hadn't cared about the old master's daily needs. Only then did Uncle Yun send a letter to the second young master. In the training room, it was still silent. Chapter 348. How long has father been locked inside? Yun Songlong frowned as he looked at the food placed outside the door. He still remembered that Yun Sheng had said earlier that Yun Ba's health was no longer as good as it used to be. It's been 3 or 4 days. He's been locked inside the entire time and hasn't even changed out of his court robes. Uncle Yun didn't know what his master had heard in court. He only knew that he had never seen his master so angry before. That day, after the old master left the morning court, he rushed into the residence like a furious lion. He pulled up the guard's saber and was about to chop the little young master when the third young mistress hugged the old master tightly. She threatened that if the old master hurt Tang Yu, she would immediately cut her own throat. Only then did the old master suppress his anger. However, he had still kicked the little young master. "Where's that bastard Tang Yu?" Yun Songlong groaned. The entire incident had started because of Tang Yu. When he had entered the residence just now, he had seen the family members of the deceased kneeling outside the door. He had also felt ashamed. Those people had scolded and smashed him, but he hadn't retaliated. The little young master is in the third Miss courtyard. Recently, there have been some unknown assassins sneaking into the residence. In order to protect the little young master, the third Miss hired many hunters to protect the courtyard. Uncle Yun shook his head as he spoke. He had watched the little young master grow up. It was all the third Miss' fault for spoiling him so much that he had developed the little young master's personality. She hired hunters? Does he think he can protect his wretched life? That woman's corpse is still outside. When Yun Songlong entered the residence, he had also seen the coffin outside. In order to protect the woman's corpse, the woman's family had used a special magic array to protect it. Although it had been nearly 20 days since the incident, the corpse was still vivid and lifelike. Yun Songlong could clearly see that there were signs of hanging on the woman's neck. "Second young master, please calm down. The little young master has made a mistake this time, but if we hand him over, only death awaits him. You also know that the third Miss dotes on the young master to the extreme. If anything happens to the young master, she won't be able to live on." Uncle Yun pulled up his sleeve and wiped the corners of his eyes. In his early years, Yunba fought on the battlefield and spent more time apart from the Yun family's matriarch. When the Yun family's matriarch was pregnant with the third Miss, she unfortunately died in childbirth. The third Miss was the youngest in the family, and because her appearance was similar to the late mistress, the master had always loved her dearly and doted on her a lot. Even if you can't live, you still have to. Tang Yu has to hand it over. "I've already asked someone to contact the leader of the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps through the Hunting Union," Yun Songlong said in a deep voice. Before he rushed back to Jade Capital, he contacted the hunting branch at the border. On one hand, he wanted to ask the branch to keep an eye on his niece Yun Sheng's safety. On the other hand, he wanted to contact the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps through the Hunting Union, hoping to minimize the incident at the residence of Yun. If it wasn't for the fact that the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps had saved so many villagers recently, causing the reputation of the Hunting Corps to rise, as well as Yun Sheng's elder token, the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps, which was only a newly formed hunting corps, would not have the qualifications to talk to the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. The Hunting Union had also just sent news that the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps members could meet together, but they had to bring along Tang Yu, the culprit. This was the main reason why Yun Songlong rushed back to the residence of Yun without stopping. Yun Songlong had good intentions, but who knew that just as he mentioned it, he heard a cold snort behind him. "Second brother, you are so vicious. Yu is your biological nephew, and you want to push him into the tiger's den with your own hands." Yun Songlong walked over with Tang Yu and a few well-equipped hunters. The moment Yun Songlong returned to the residence, Yun Songshue's spies reported the news to Yun Songshue. The news of the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps making a great contribution at the borders of Zhou State and saving hundreds of villagers had already spread to the Jade Capital a few days ago. Yun Songshue thought that since Yun Songlong was now a regiment commander, he might have some say in the Hunting Union. Since he had returned to the residence, he must have a way to help Tang Yu. Thus, she immediately brought people over, who knew that the moment she entered the courtyard, she would hear Yun Songlong saying that he wanted to hand Tang Yu over. She was immediately enraged and questioned him sternly. "Vicious? Third sister, even now, you still want to protect that little bastard? A life for a life. If the emperor commits a crime, he will be punished the same as the commoners. He caused someone's death. Doesn't he have any responsibility?" Yun Songlong couldn't believe that Yun Songshue was still so stubborn. He was too disappointed in Yun Songshue. "Second brother, Yu is in the wrong. but he didn't personally kill anyone. He's young and doesn't know any better. Shouldn't you give him a chance to turn over a new leaf? You keep saying that you want to hand him over, but you're actually biased. If it was Yun Shang, that wretched girl, would you be willing to hand him over? Yun Sangxue was even more furious when she heard this. When he heard Yun Sangxue calling Yun Shang a wretched girl, Yun Songlong felt a surge of anger in his stomach. For Tang Yu's matter, he could only abandon Yun Shang, whose fate was still unknown. He had rushed back with all his heart, but what awaited him was such an unreasonable tantrum. If it was Shang Yun Sangxue, are your words even human? She's your niece, big brother's biological daughter. How can she be compared to your bastard son? My niece saves the dying and heals the injured. She never kills the innocent. Yun Songlong was furious. Yun Sangxue was speechless. When Tang Yu saw that second uncle had made his mother speechless, he was even more afraid. Mother, I don't want to leave the residence. Didn't you see those people outside? They're so ferocious. If I go out, they will definitely kill me. Tang Yu's appearance did look a little miserable. These few days, he was so frightened that he didn't dare to leave the residence. Furthermore, those people from the Wolf Fang hunting corps sneaked into the general's residence from time to time. His grandfather, who had always been his protective umbrella, not only kicked him this time, but he also almost kicked him to death. He completely disregarded his own safety and allowed those people to come and go in the residence. Tang Yu was so frightened that he couldn't sleep well. When he heard that he was going to be handed over, he was so frightened that he almost peed. Be good. Mother will never let anyone bully you. Don't be afraid. Even if I have to use 10,000 pounds, I will hire someone to protect you. Don't worry, just wait for 5 more days and the people from the Bloody Hand Tycoon will be back. By then, you don't have to be afraid of anyone. Yun Sangxue looked at her son with heartache. These few days, this child was so frightened that he even lost a few pounds of meat. Yun Sangxue? Who did you hire? You actually hired people from the Bloody Hand Tycoon? Do you still think that the Yun residence's reputation isn't bad enough? Yun Songlong's mind was blown. The Bloody Hand Tycoon was a very special organization in the Boundless Continent. Its nature seemed to be similar to the Hunting Corps. In the name of receiving commissions, it could complete any mission. These missions included killing and robbing. Under certain circumstances, they could even kidnap and invade. There was nothing that they wouldn't do. In order to complete their missions, the people from the Bloody Hand Tycoon could be said to be unscrupulous and despicable. Chapter 349. Yun Songlong had already realized that Yun Sangshue's hiring of the Blood Hand Tycoon when the Yun residence was facing such a huge crisis was undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire. The scariest thing about the Bloody Hand Trench was that no one knew the origin of the Bloody Hand Trench, and no one knew how many people they had. People only knew that once the Bloody Hand Tycoon was hired, its people would complete the mission. No matter if it was a commoner or even a noble, the Bloody Hand Tycoon would complete the mission without exception. Since the Bloody Hand Tycoon was so mysterious, the reward it demanded was also very special. It didn't accept gold coins, but it demanded the other party to complete a condition of equal value as the reward. If the employer couldn't complete the task, the Bloody Hand Tycoon's people would take revenge at all costs. Within Zhou State, there was once a wealthy family who hired the Bloody Hand Tycoon to kill his competitor due to a business dispute. However, after killing his competitor, the Bloody Hand Tycoon suggested that the wealthy family use his entire fortune in exchange. That wealthy family naturally didn't agree. However, on the second day, his entire family of 63 people, including all his servants and livestock, were all killed. Not a single one was left alive. Since then, the Bloody Hand Tycoon's notoriety quickly spread throughout the Boundless Continent. There were many similar incidents. The Bloody Hand Tycoon was the most notorious assassin organization in the continent in recent decades. Therefore, Yun Songlong panicked when he found out that Yun Sangxue had hired the Bloody Hand Tycoon. It was easy to dodge an open spear, but hard to defend against a hidden arrow. Even Yun Songlong didn't dare to provoke the Bloody Hand Tycoon's people. He didn't expect Yun Sangxue to hire the Bloody Hand Tycoon without discussing with her family. Sangxue, How dare you hire the Bloody Hand Tycoon's people behind my back? Yunba rushed out of his room. It had only been a few days, but Yunba looked as if he had aged several years. His originally light gray hair had turned white. Father, you can't blame me. These days, those people have been causing a ruckus outside the residence. Hasn't had a good rest for many days. The Wolf Fang hunting corps isn't to be trifled with. I only invited the Bloody Hand Tycoon's people to threaten them. Yun Sangxue continued to quibble. Yun Sangxue didn't tell the Yun family's father and son that she had even prepared for the worst. If the Wolf Fang hunting corps still didn't rest, she would let the Bloody Hand Trench's men kill the Wolf Fang hunting corps' captain. Nonsense. Have you ever thought about whether or not you can fulfill Bloody Hand Tycoon's conditions? Yunba let out a long sigh of disappointment and frustration. He didn't expect that Yun Sangxue would cause an even bigger mess while he was in seclusion trying to think of a solution. At most, we'll just give him more treasures and not gold coins. Our Yun residence also has plenty of things for him to choose from. Yun Sangxue didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. How long has it been since you sent out the request? Is it too late to revoke it? Yun Songlong also blamed himself endlessly. If he had rushed back earlier, perhaps Yun Sangxue would not have acted rashly. Seeing that her father and Yun Songlong, who had always remained calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, had ugly expressions, Yun Sangxue realized that she had caused a huge disaster. It seemed like the Bloody Hand Tycoon she had provoked was even more troublesome than the Wolf Fang hunting corps. It's already too late. When I woke up this morning, I discovered that there was an extra card at my bedside. Yun Sangxue hesitated and took out an extra card from her sleeve. It was a gold-plated invitation card. It was squarish and had 4 golden tassels hanging from the 4 corners of the invitation card. It was made of a special metal and looked no different from an ordinary invitation card from a wealthy family. But the cover of the card was a bloody handprint the size of an adult's palm. That bloody handprint emitted a special smell that was like blood and also like a fragrance. Just by smelling it, one would feel flustered. The Bloody Hand Tycoon's card. This card represented that the Bloody Hand Tycoon had already accepted Yun Sangxue's deal. If they were to break the contract now, they would still face the crazy pursuit of the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Early this morning, Yunba frowned. Although he had been secluding himself in the training room these few days, he was still aware of everything that had happened outside. There was no lack of experts among the hunters from the Wolf Fang hunting corps that had barged into the Yun residence. These people, just relying on those third-rate hunters that Yun Sangxue had found, was simply not enough to resist them. Every time those people wanted to barge into Yun Sangxue and her son's courtyard, Yunba would warn them. The aura of a martial saint was still very shocking. Even if he did not step out of the house, he would still scare the hunters away. But early this morning, Yunba did not discover anyone barging into the general's residence. Could it be that there was a martial saint expert who was not inferior to him in the Bloody Hand Tycoon? Father, since things have come to this stage, the only way out is to settle the matter of the Wolf Fang hunting corps before the Bloody Hand Tycoon arrives. Tang Yu must go and apologize this time. Yun Songlong insisted that Tang Yu go with him to the Wolf Fang hunting corps. One matter at a time, in case the Yun residence was attacked from both sides. When the time came, it would be even more difficult to deal with. No, grandfather, Yu does not want to go. Tang Yu did not expect that in the end. He still had to meet the people from the Wolf Fang hunting corps. Tang Yu, you are a man. Why are you crying endlessly? Yunba had heard how Yun Sangxue indulged his son and insulted Yun Sheng when he was in the room just now. Looking at Tang Yu's useless appearance, he thought of Yun Sheng's calm appearance during the free medical consultation. Why was it that they were all descendants of the Yun family, but they were so different from each other? There is no need to talk about this anymore. Songlong, bring Yu to the Wolf Fang hunting corps. I will deal with the matter of the Bloody Hand Tycoon later. Although he was very disappointed in Tang Yu, Yunba could not harden his heart and watch Tang Yu be killed. Yun Sangxue was still arguing, but Yunba glanced at her coldly. Sangxue, you have disappointed me too much. You are not allowed to have any contact with Yu these few days. Men, take her away. If anyone wants to help Third Miss during this period, immediately banish them from the general's residence and never hire them again. It was only now that Yunba realized how wrong it was for him to leave the matters of the Yun residence to Yun Sangshuo, all these years after such a drastic change. Amidst Yun Sangshuo's discontent and Tang Yu's wails, the two of them were taken away. The hunters that Yun Sangshuo had invited were also chased away by Yunba. Uncle Yun, investigate the servants and hangers-on who left the general's residence during this incident and blacklist them. I want to make it difficult for them to establish themselves in Zhou State in the future. Also, spread some fake news. I think there must be a lot of spies in the Yun residence these days. Yunba had also calmed down after staying in the training room for a few days. Thanks to Liuli, Yu, and Modi for their tips. Chapter 350. In the imperial court, Yunba felt helpless in the battle of words between the old officials. This time, the emperor of Zhou State was also watching coldly from the sidelines. These people were all waiting to see the fall of the Yun residence. He wanted to let these people know that as long as he, Yunba, was alive, the Yun residence would never fall. Didn't you go to the southern border of Zhou State? Why did you come back? Yunba looked at Yun Songlong with some anger in his heart. His good son had established the hunting corps on his own initiative and went to the southern border of Zhou State without his knowledge. That place almost took his life back then. If the people of Grand Emperor City knew that his hand had recovered, they would take revenge even more crazily. What will come will come. Father, have you investigated the matter clearly? Was that girl really killed by you? Although Yun Songlong hated Tang Yu for being a disappointment, he still understood his nephew's nature very well. The few times he had abducted women, it was mostly verbal teasing. However, this was the first time he had used force. Isn't it all because of that group of scoundrels? He drank for a long time that day, and I can't remember the details. I only remember that when he woke up, it was already too late. Yunba had also seen the coffin placed at the door. A 15 to 16-year-old flowery girl who was indeed beautiful was forced to her death by his own grandson. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to take this lying down. How confident are you about the Wolf Fong hunting corps? It's not convenient for me to accompany you. If necessary, I can let Uncle Yun accompany you. Yunba sighed. He was forced to the point that he had nothing to say in the imperial court. In the end, it was the emperor of Zhou State who spoke. The Wolf Fong hunting corps was an A-class hunting corps. In the early years, they had assisted the military in transporting food and weapons, and even guarded the city. They definitely couldn't fall out with the Wolf Fong hunting corps because of Tang Yu. The emperor of Zhou State's meaning was very clear. In the end, Yunba could only agree that no matter how the Wolf Fong hunting corps wanted to deal with Tang Yu, he wouldn't interfere. The most suitable person for this matter was actually Yun Songlong, who was a hunting corps soldier. I understand. Uncle Yun should stay in the residence and help you. I'll bring some brothers from the hunting corps over. Master Zong also came back with me. Humph. Where's that stubborn girl? What? She's still not willing to come to the general's estate. Yunba said, but he did not mean what he said. He shot a few glances behind Yun Songlong. Such a big incident had happened in the Yun residence, yet that child still refused to come. He must really hate the Yun residence to the core. Something happened to Sha, or when she was at the border, so she was delayed. Yun Songlong hesitated for a moment before telling Yunba what had happened in the southern realm. What? You said she was trapped under the mine? How is it? Are you hurt? How could you let a half-grown child stay in the cave alone? Yunba's heart burned with anger when he heard this. Shang-Er is not an ordinary child. She has the ability to protect herself. She is safe for now. I have already sent word that she will return to the Jade Capital in a few days. Yun Songlong looked at his father's reaction and laughed inwardly. His old man was the one who did not mean what he said. Yunba's expression softened. Only then did he relax. The father and son talked about the situation in the Jade Capital. In a private residence in the Jade Capital, from the outside, it looked like a very ordinary residence. Before and after the lantern was lit, a figure slid down from the eaves like a gecko. Like a drop of water dripping down from the eaves, he silently landed in the room. Sitting in the room was the young city lord of the Grand Emperor city, Xian Wuji, whom he had not seen for a few days. The figure was wearing a scarlet robe that covered him from head to toe. There were no gaps, except for a few holes where his eyes, mouth, and nose should be. Young city lord, everything has been done according to your instructions. Now we just have to wait for the fish to take the bait, the red-robed man said. I heard that Yun Songlong has returned to the Jade Capital. Things are getting more and more lively. This time, you have done well. You have not wasted my years of support for the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Xian Wuji played with a medicine bottle in his hand. Originally, he wanted to poison Yun Ba after entering the Jade Capital. How could he have known that things weren't as simple as he thought? Although Yun Ba was a military general, he was very cautious in his work. His food and clothing were all taken care of by an old servant in his residence, Uncle Yun, and he never left it to others. Xian Wuji used all kinds of methods, even letting people sneak into the Yun residence as retainers and servants, but he could not do anything. However, even someone as sinister as Xian Wuji did not give up on his plan immediately. He sent people to spy on the people in the Yun residence. Very quickly, he found out that there was a huge flaw in the Yun residence. That was Tang Yu, that ignorant and incompetent playboy. As expected, he only needed to do a little trick to catch Tang Yu in the wrong. He then ordered people to secretly approach Yun Songxue and threw out the Bloody Hand Tycoon. As expected, the mother and son pair fell for it. Outsiders did not know that the Bloody Hand Tycoon was an organization that the Grand Emperor City had nurtured over the years. More than 50% of the Grand Emperor City's huge expenditure came from the Bloody Hand Tycoon. Don't worry, young city lord. However, young city lord, I just received news from the city that young Miss Mei Mei was seriously injured and was just sent back by young Master Yua. The member of the Bloody Hand, Trench, respectfully replied, Useless thing, only knowing how to die for men. Don't worry about her, the city lord will take care of her. In these few days, keep a close eye on the Yun residence. If there is any movement, immediately report to me. Xian Wuji waved his hand impatiently. The members of the Bloody Hand Tycoon left silently. Xian Wuji looked at the medicine bottle in his hand. This time, no one could save the Yun residence. After traveling day and night, finally, Yun Shang and Yi Baiming returned to the Jade Capital 3 days later. This day was also the day that Yun Songlong escorted Tang Yu to negotiate with the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. The location of the negotiation was chosen by the Hunting Corps. They chose a relatively secluded tavern in the city. This tavern was also one of the taverns under the Hunting Corps of the Jade Capital. It was also the place where the hunters drank or made private deals. Yun Songlong received the news that the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps' commander and vice-commander, as well as the injured B-grade hunter, would be present. In order to show his sincerity, Yun Songlong brought Tang Yu out early to the tavern. In order to avoid hurting the innocent, a "Closed today" sign was hung outside the tavern. Don't speak later. If you say the wrong thing again, even second uncle will not be able to protect you. Yun Songlong knew that Tang Yu would only cause trouble. At this moment, a few people arrived at the entrance of the tavern. They were dressed very ordinarily, but just by looking at their footsteps and the way they entered the tavern, one could tell that they were not ordinary customers. There were 3 of them, 3 hunters from the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. Chapter 351. The one walking at the front should be the leader of the Wolf's Fang troop, Tong Lang. He was a burly warrior. Behind him was a heavy crossbow that was almost as tall as a person. The crossbow was black in color, and it was shining with a light that was not inferior to the sun. The one in the middle was a female hunter, and an extremely outstanding one at that. She was not even 30 years old, and was at the most attractive age for a woman. She had brown hair, and held a magic scepter in her hand. There were 4 magic soul stones embedded on the magic scepter. Behind the female hunter was a male hunter who looked a little pale. Among the 3 of them, he was the youngest. When he saw Yun Songlong and his niece sitting in the middle of the tavern, the male hunter's eyes almost spat fire. He subconsciously pressed on the scabbard on his waist, but his hand was pushed away by the female mage beside him with her magic scepter. When Yun Songlong was sizing up the three people from the Wolf's Fang troop, Song Lang and the deputy leader of the Wolf's Fang troop, who was also the female hunter Hui Nu, were also observing Yun Songlong. When they realized that the other party only brought a hunter as an assistant to negotiate, that there were no ambushes near the tavern, and that the martial sage of Zhou State, Yun Ba, was not nearby, the two of them relaxed a little. At the same time, their impression of Yun Songlong was much better. It was rumored that Yun Songlong, one of the two heroes of Zhou State's military, was a righteous and upright person. Looking at him now, it was indeed so. Even though they were on bad terms with the Yun's residents, the Wolf's Fang troop still avoided Yun Ba's reputation. Leader Yun. Song Lang walked forward and cupped his hands as a form of greeting. The beginning of the negotiation between both parties seemed to be quite harmonious. Leader Tsong. Yun Songlong also stood up and bowed. Deputy Leader Hua, don't stop me. I want to kill that bastard. Just as the two of them were greeting each other, the young hunter suddenly broke free from the magic scepter of the female mage beside him, and his hand went to his waist. The young male hunter's attire was a little special. Most of the martial artists in the boundless continent liked to hang their swords on their waists, but on his waist, there was a row of small knives and daggers that were only the length of a finger. With a flick of his wrist, a silver light flashed and 5 to 6 concealed daggers flew towards Tang Yu. The way he shot out the concealed weapons was extremely fast. It was obvious that he was an expert in this area. Every concealed weapon was wrapped in a layer of dou qi. 5 to 6 of these daggers, linked together, were all aimed at Tang Yu's vital acupoints. If Tang Yu was really stabbed, blood would definitely splatter on the spot. On the other hand, Yun Songlong was unhurried. His hand was several times faster than the dagger. He picked up Tang Yu and the 5, 6, 8 hidden weapons missed their target. The hidden weapon pierced the wall of the tavern, and suddenly, 5 or 6 knife marks appeared on the wall. After Yun Songlong dodged the dagger, he threw Tang Yu back to his original position. The entire process was smooth and fluid. If one were to look at it from the side, it would seem as if Tang Yu's but had never left his seat. If Tang Yu hadn't been so frightened that his eyes had rolled back, no one would have realized what had just happened. Song Lang and Hui Nu, who were at the side, also looked calm on the surface. However, at this moment, their hearts were in turmoil. Back then, Yun Songlong was considered a top figure in Zhou State. Even Song Lang and the others, who were hunters, avoided Yun Songlong's name. Previously, there was a rumor that Yun Songlong had abandoned the army to become a hunter after being crippled for many years. His originally crippled hands had miraculously recovered. However, Song Lang and the others didn't really believe it. They thought that it was impossible for a broken hand to recover. Even if it recovered, his skills would definitely be greatly reduced. Therefore, this time, when they heard that Yun Songlong had stepped forward to resolve this matter, Song Lang and the others still had some thoughts of testing him. After testing, they immediately realized that Yun Songlong's skills didn't deteriorate compared to back then. In fact, they seemed to have improved. Song Lang pretended to be angry and said, "Lu Hao, who allowed you to make a move? Don't be presumptuous in front of Commander Yun." "It's fine. This must be Brother Lu. This matter is also Tang Yu's fault." Yun Songlong smiled indifferently. Yun Songlong sneered in his heart. What a good Wolf Fang hunting corps, they were also cunning enough. Hui Nu's cultivation was much higher than Lu Hao's. How could she not be able to stop her impulsive subordinate? Tang Yu, who was at the side, wanted to cry but had no tears. He was really scared to death. Since we agreed to discuss this matter, let's get straight to the point. This matter originally had nothing to do with our Wolf Fang hunting corps. However, Lu Hao is a very promising hunter in our group. Commander Yun, you should know that when a member of your group is in trouble, as a commander, you must stand up for him. Song Lang had already found out Yun Songlong's bottom line, so he straightforwardly spoke of the purpose of this trip. Commander Tsong is right. Tang Yu, this matter started because of you. Brother Lu is also here today. Just tell us directly how you want to deal with this little bastard. Yun Songlong ordered someone to bring wine. When Lu Hao heard this, he glared at Tang Yu. When he saw Tang Yu, he thought of his fiancée who had died tragically. He wished he could drink the blood and eat the flesh of this damn fatty in front of him. A life for a life. I want his life. Lu Hao said word by word, his hand once again reaching for his dagger. But this time, he did not act rashly. He knew that as long as Yun Songlong was here, even if he shot out a concealed weapon, he would not have the chance to hurt Tang Yu. I didn't kill her. She was the one who took things too hard. Why should I pay with my life? Moreover, that woman is only a commoner. When Tang Yu heard this, he also became angry. Today, his mother was not here, and his grandfather was also not here. If second uncle was impulsive and really wanted him to pay with his life, wouldn't he be dead? It would have been better if Tang Yu did not open his mouth. Once he opened his mouth, Song Lang and Huanu immediately glared at him. Most of the hunters were born poor, and they could not bear to hear the sons of officials discriminating against the commoners. Not only did Tang Yu humiliate the lady, he even dared to spout nonsense after her death. Such vile behavior was enough for him to die 1,000 times over. Shut up, you little bastard. The veins on Yun Songlong's forehead throbbed as he slammed his palm onto the table. A handprint appeared on the several inches thick surface of the table. The wine glasses on the table were all shattered. Wine dripped down. Inside the tavern, only Tang Yu's frightened breathing could be heard. Yun Songlong's anger caused the temperature of the tavern to drop by several degrees. Tang Yu stole a glance at his second uncle. Song Lang and Huanu, on the other hand, had an indifferent expression as they drank the wine in their hands. After a while, it was Song Lang who spoke first. He put down his wine cup and said, "Leader Yun, I respect the residents of Yun for its loyalty and bravery, but sometimes a piece of rat poop will spoil the whole pot of porridge. In this case, the gains will not make up for the losses." Song Lang's words were light but heavy at the same time. The murderous intent in his words was self-evident. The vice leader of Huanu also sat at the side with a kind smile on his face. But if one took a closer look, one would realize that the magic scepter in Huanu's hand was shining with a moving light. She was already prepared to chant a spell. Song Lang alone might not be Yun Songlong's opponent. But with the addition of an extremely aggressive fire element mage, the outcome would be hard to say. Since we have already spoken to this point, I think Leader Yun should understand our intentions. I will make a decision on behalf of Lu Hao. A life for a life. As long as the residents of Yun agrees, the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps will promise you that we will not cause trouble at the residents of Yun in the future. But if Leader Yun does not agree, then the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps and the Sky Hunting Corps will be mortal enemies. Song Lang's words were resolute and decisive. There was no room for negotiation. Chapter 352. The matter had escalated from Tang Yu to the entire Sky Expedition Hunting Corps. It was not enough for Song Lang to become the leader of an A-grade hunting corps based on his cultivation base alone. He was like a wolf king. He was cunning and meticulous. He was the leader of the entire hunting corps, and also the one who controlled the entire situation. Yun Songlong had to consider carefully. As the leader of the hunting corps, he could not sit back and watch hundreds of hunters be implicated because of his personal affair. Tang Yu's body of fat was trembling nonstop. He did not even dare to cry or make a fuss. "Leader Yun, I'll give you 3 days to consider. Tell me your answer after you've thought it through. I hope you don't have any other ideas, such as secretly sending them away. The boundless land is huge, but there are traces of the hunting corps everywhere." Song Lang stood up and was about to leave with Huanu and Lu Hao. "There's no need for 3 days. I can answer you right now. We won't hand them over." The door of the inn was pushed open. The owner of the inn hurried forward to stop the guests. "Dear guests, the inn is closed today. We won't be serving any guests." Seeing the guests, Yun Songlong's gloomy face brightened up. Tang Yu, however, twitched as if he was suffering from epilepsy. There were also 2 men and a woman who entered. However, their formation was different from the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. Among the 3 people who entered, it was obvious that the female sorcerer was the leader. She was the smallest and the youngest, but she was at the front. Judging from the female sorcerer's travel-worn appearance, she had just returned from overseas. However, The bright smile on her face did not make one feel tired at all. She had a pair of unusually clean black eyes. Her hair of the same color was casually tied behind her back with a cat's eye red jade hairpin. There was a slender magic scepter hanging from her waist. She gave off a very comfortable feeling. Of the two men behind her, one was a young and tall warrior. The other one was an elegant young master. He did not need to say a word, but he was a handsome man who gave off an oppressive air of nobility. Yun Songlong saw that his niece was safe and sound and smiled in relief. The emotions that had been suppressed by Tang Yu's matter these few days had also faded. He knew that Yun Shang must have her reasons for coming here, so he didn't say much and let Yun Shang have the right to speak. Yun Shang smiled at Yun Songlong. She wasn't here to meet second uncle. Her beautiful eyes seemed to sweep across the people of the Wolf Fong hunting corps as she clasped her hands. This one is Yin Yun, the vice leader of the Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps. Yun Shang came back around sunrise. She returned to the medical hall first. Over the past few days, the incident at the residence of Yun had been the hottest topic in the city. Lin Yao collected a lot of information. When Yun Shang heard this, she rushed to the Yun residence without resting. Just as Lin Yao had said, there was a coffin outside the Yun residence. The coffin was open, and inside lay the unfortunate woman who had died tragically. Yun Shang didn't enter the general's residence. She pretended to be a passerby and looked around the woman's coffin before asking the woman's family some questions. Just as she was asking around, Uncle Yun walked out of the residence. When he saw Yun Shang, he was overjoyed and secretly pulled Yun Shang to one side and told Yun Shang about the negotiation between Yun Songlong and the Wolf Fong hunting corps at the pub. That was why Yun Shang rushed to the pub. After hearing Yun Shang's self-introduction, the three people from the Wolf Fong hunting corps were surprised. They didn't expect that the vice leader of the newly established Wolf Fong hunting corps was actually this young female hunter. One had to know that it was a very difficult task to establish a hunter corps on the continent. Most of the hunters had been in the hunter world since they were young. They had to complete countless difficult missions before they could gradually accumulate fame and wealth in the hunter world. After they had enough fame and wealth, some people would form their own hunting squad or even a hunting corps. For those who were lucky, it would take 10 years. For those who were unlucky, it might take 20 years. So the hunting corps leaders in the hunting corps, the youngest one was at least 30 years old. The older ones, like Songlang, were already 4 years old. Feng Kuo from Huang Teng's trio was already considered the youngest among them. But how old was Yun Shang? She was really 8 years old, but her appearance was only 12 or 13 years old. No wonder the few people from the Wolf Fong hunting corps were dumbfounded. When they were mumbling about Yun Shang's age, they suddenly thought of her name. Yin Yun. This name, why did it sound so familiar? Lu Hao, who was by the side, stared at Yun Shang strangely and cried out as if he had seen a ghost. You are bloody Lolita, Yin Yun of the Huangting hunting troop. The Yin Yun who killed the Dark Guard hunting corps and had a master like Emperor Zhao. Lu Hao's shouting made Songlang and Hui Nu think of this person. Hunters who had reached the level of Songlang and Hui Nu would never go to the hunting corps citadel, but their subordinates were different. Usually, after they finished their missions, they would go to the hunting corps citadel to participate in a few fights for a few drinks or to vent their anger. Coincidentally, when Huang Teng's group of 4 was taking part in the B-grade hunter squad assessment, Lu Hao was also taking part in the hunter combat arena with his fellow hunter brothers. Because of the later Qin's Dark Guard hunting corps, the entire hunting corps citadel knew about Huang Ting's fight. The tickets for the last fight were sold at a sky-high price. When Lu Hao went to buy the tickets, they were already sold out. In order to make up for his regret, he had to spend a high price to buy a magic scroll that recorded the fight. The scene where Yun Shang killed the Dark Guard hunting corps left a deep impression on him. But because Yun Shang was wearing an illusion earring, he did not recognize her. Now that he heard Yun Shang's words and looked at the familiar magic scepter in Yun Shang's hand, he immediately recognized Yun Shang. Huangting, are you talking about the B-grade hunting corps that has been in the limelight recently? It is said that they have the chance to become the first A-grade hunting corps in the boundless continent. Speaking of Huangting, Song Lang had some impression of it. Huanu also had a curious look on her face. She had seen the magic scroll that Lu Hao had bought earlier. Who would have thought that this little girl who looked as fresh as Jasmine was actually the bloody Loli who killed without blinking an eye? It was just that her appearance was not related to bloody Loli. Yi Baiming, who was listening at the side, looked at Yun Sheng from head to toe with a mischievous look on his face. He did not expect that the little wild cat had done so many things before reuniting with him. Yun Sheng felt goosebumps all over her body when he looked at her. She rolled her eyes back at him. I'm indebted to the brothers from the Hunter Union for thinking so highly of me. I seem to have such a nickname in the past. Facing the crowd who looked as if they had seen a ghost, Yun Sheng chuckled and did not shy away, directly admitting her identity. Chapter 353. Yin Yun was ruthless and had a good relationship with Huang Ting, a newly established hunting team. He also had the backing of a powerful figure like Emperor Zhao. Song Lang could not help but frown when all these factors were added together. However, he had already stated his conditions. If they were to speculate about the power behind Yin Yun and the news spread, the Wolf Fang hunting troop would no longer be able to survive in the underworld. Deputy Commander Yin, you're a little late. I've already discussed the conditions with Commander Yun. Also, this is a private matter between Wolf's Fang and Tang Yu. I don't think you're willing to let the Heaven Extermination Hunting Group get involved in this. Song Lang looked at Yun Sheng, and Tang Yu knew that they didn't have much of a relationship. He thought that Yin Yun would not be here to help Tang Yu. Don't worry, we don't have the time to clean up that kid's mess. He will get into trouble sooner or later. Yun Sheng was not in the mood to care about Tang Yu at first. She and the Tang family's mother and son had disliked each other for a long time. She did not even have the mood to talk to them. However, she happened to discover something interesting outside the Yun residence. As long as Tang Yu was still a member of the Yun residence and Yun Sheng still had the blood of the Yun family flowing in her body, Tang Yu's matter would not be unrelated to her. Yun Sheng had always been someone who dealt with matters and not people. Due to the protection of a special magic array, the hanged woman's corpse was still well preserved. Her face was even more lifelike. If not for her cold limbs, one would not be able to tell that she had been dead for more than 10 days. When she saw the woman's death earlier, she was even more disgusted with Tang Yu. However, when she took a closer look at the woman in the coffin, she realized that something was amiss. Although Yun Sheng was not a forensic doctor, she had seen many corpses in the dissection room of the university when she was studying medicine. Some of them died of natural causes, while others died of various reasons. Therefore, she had some understanding of corpses. Normally, when a civilian died, there were no forensic doctors or coroners in the Boundless Land. The local government would participate in the investigation of the cause of death and invite a doctor to confirm it. However, because this matter involved the Marshal St. General's mansion, the government had some scruples. In the end, it was still the family of the woman who invited a doctor from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Coincidentally, the doctor the woman's family invited was none other than Cheng Sihai. After Cheng Sihai examined the woman's body, he concluded that the woman had hanged herself. Yun Sheng also saw the woman in the coffin. There were obvious marks on her neck, and her face was blue. She had also asked the woman's family. When the woman was first found, her eyes were protruding and her tongue was hanging out. These were the physiological characteristics of a hanged person. Yun Sheng wanted to let it go, but she accidentally discovered that there were very faint marks on the woman's flat hand. Looking at the color of the wound, it was clearly a wound that existed before the woman died. Yun Sheng's eyebrows twitched. She remembered that in one of her autopsy classes, her teacher had unintentionally pointed to a corpse that was waiting to be dissected and said that it was a corpse that was disguised as a suicide. Yun Sheng briefly explained her suspicions. I also noticed that the place where the woman hanged herself was a banyan tree that was more than 3 meters tall. There was also nothing to stand on, and she didn't know any martial arts. How did she hang herself there? What do you mean by that? Are you suspecting that Xinyu was killed? The doctor from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion has already personally verified her cause of death. Are you saying that you are more capable than the people from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion? Lu Hao felt as though he was being humiliated when he heard Yun Sheng's analysis. His fiancée had died tragically, and now someone was suspecting her cause of death. Furthermore, the murderer, Tang Yu, was still at large. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Whether she committed suicide or was killed, we only need to examine the corpse carefully. Yun Sheng didn't say much. What she meant was that she wanted to bring them to the entrance of the Yun residence to investigate. Cheng Sihai's medical skills weren't bad, but Yun Sheng didn't think that he had the ability to be a forensic doctor. No, Xin Yu is already dead. It's not enough that bastard Tang Yu humiliated her. You guys still want to desecrate her corpse after she died. Lu Hao insisted. No matter what, he wasn't willing to let Yun Sheng examine Xin Yu's corpse. The people of the Boundless Continent were simple and simple. They had always been respectful towards the corpses of the dead. It was already very humiliating that Xin Yu's corpse couldn't be buried after so long. If he let Yun Sheng examine the corpse in front of everyone, Lu Hao wouldn't be able to get over this hurdle in his heart. Second uncle, you heard her. She also said that I didn't kill that woman. Tang Yu had originally thought that Yun Sheng was here to kick him when he was down. Now that he heard Yun Sheng's words, he immediately beamed with joy. He also felt that Yun Sheng was much more pleasing to the eye. It was as if he couldn't remember who it was that had chased Yun Sheng out like a beggar when she was at her lowest. Shut up. If you say another word, I'll make sure you can't open your mouth for the rest of your life. Yun Sheng glared at him. Tang Yu was so frightened that he shuddered. Tang Yu was a lawless existence in the Yun residence. His mother doted on him too much. His maternal grandfather Yun Ba was also very protective of him, and his second uncle Yun Songlong was also indifferent towards him. This was the reason why he had become like this today. Yun Sheng was the first person who dared to speak to him in such a tone. However, Tang Yu couldn't refute. He had seen how powerful Yun Sheng was. He heard from his mother that his second uncle's hand was cured by this murderous female jinx. Not only that, his mother also said that her alchemy skills were also very high. Previously, the son of the elder of Wushuan Limitless School's medicine hall was said to have offended this little jinx and was thus poisoned to death. Yun Sheng naturally didn't know that in the outside world, other than her superb medical skills and bloody lowly, she also had the title of poison doctor. Although Tsang Lang and Huan Nu weren't medical practitioners, they also felt that Yun Sheng's analysis just now was reasonable. However, Lu Hao was emotional and refused to agree to the other party's autopsy no matter what. Deputy Commander Yin, you also saw that Lu Hao has a bad temper. If he doesn't want to, none of us can do anything to convince him. I have an idea that may be able to calm both sides down. Huan Nu saw a group of big men staring at each other for a long time without a result, so she simply walked out and acted as a peacemaker. Yun Sheng looked at Huan Nu and saw that she was gorgeous and spoke quite appropriately. She was a woman and a magician, but she could be called an A-level hunter in the hunting world of Zhou State, where warriors were respected. If the other party was not outstanding in magic, then she must have some skills. Sometimes, compared with men, women could indeed play a different role. Deputy Commander Hua, what's your plan? Yun Sheng didn't know the other party's intention, so she followed Huan Nu's meaning and said, everyone is a hunter. There has always been only one rule for hunters to speak and do things. Whoever is stronger will have the final say. There are people from the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps and the Sky Hunting Corps present. Why don't we choose 3 people and have a competition? 3 wins and 2 losses. Whoever wins more will have the final say. Huan Nu chuckled and her pair of charming eyes lingered on Yun Songlong for a while. Chapter 354. Yun Sheng looked around the arena. Second uncle, her, and Zhou Quan were the 3 of them. However, in terms of strength, second uncle Yun Songlong's strength was unquestionable. The leader of the opposing team, Tsang Lang, was not weak either. As for Huan Nu, she had 4 magic soul stones on her magic scepter. She was a holy sorcerer. As for Lu Hao, he was able to become a B-grade hunter at such a young age. His strength should be at the level of a martial honor. At first glance, the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps' strength was obviously stronger than the Heaven Felling Corps. After all, The current competition was 3 wins and 2 losses. There was a limit to the number of matches. Yun Songlong also noticed this point. Just as he was about to remind Yun Sheng not to be fooled, Yun Sheng spoke first. 3 wins and 2 losses is fine. However, we will decide the participants. Sure, but the participants must be from the Heaven-Felling Hunting Corps. Huanu looked at Yi Baiming meaningfully. This unbelievably handsome man had not spoken a single word since he entered the tavern. However, no one would ignore him. Even with Huanu's cultivation, no one could tell his level of cultivation. He's not from our hunting corps. He won't participate. Yun Sheng quickly distanced herself from Yi Baiming. She did not plan to let Yi Baiming fight. Little wildcat, you're making me very sad. Yi Baiming touched his nose and squeezed out an ugly smile on his handsome face. However, it was not convenient for Yi Baiming to investigate the affairs of the people. The residence of Yun was currently in a delicate situation in Zhou State. The Emperor of Zhou State obviously wanted to watch the tigers fight from the sidelines. He was a nosy prince who occasionally acted as a hunter. The Emperor of Zhou State would not have any objections. However, if he was directly related to the residents of Yun, it would be a different story. Straightforward. Since Deputy Commander Yin has spoken, we, the Wolffang Corps, will definitely accompany you to the end. If you win, I will persuade Lu Hao and Miss Xian Yu's family to let you undergo a second autopsy. However, if you lose, you will have to hand over Tang Yu. A cold light flashed in Hui Nu's beautiful eyes. Tang Yu was so scared that he was sweating profusely. He actually wanted to say, "You people are betting on my life and death. You should at least ask for my opinion." But when she recalled Yun Sheng's warning and ferocious gaze, Tang Yu had no choice but to stand together with Yi Baiming with a red face, waiting for this evenly matched hunter competition. Since the words had already been spoken, it would be difficult to change them. Yun Songlong handed it over to Yun Sheng and lowered his voice. "Sheng, what are you planning? Huanu and Lu Hao's skills are obviously much higher than yours. If we want to win, we need to win at least 2 matches." He also knew that Yun Sheng had a lot of tricks up her sleeve, but no matter how clever she was, once it was a one-on-one competition, it was useless. He might be able to defeat Song Lang, but if Yun Sheng and Zhou Quan were to win another match, he was afraid that, second uncle, it's just 2 wins and 1 loss. We still have more than a 50% chance of winning. Yun Sheng glanced at Huanu. The magic scepter in her hand was filled with fire-type soul stones. In Yun Sheng's eyes, it looked like the horn of victory. If it was a month ago, she wouldn't be so stupid as to compete with a sacred magus like Huanu. A sacred magus magic cultivation was 2 magic realms higher than Yun Sheng's, who was only an archmage at that time. The difference between the 2 magic realms was not easy to cross. However, after Yun Sheng obtained the Fire of Elves, it was very different. "Captain Song, this humble one is Yi Baiming. I am Deputy Captain Yan's best friend. Today, I am fortunate enough to witness the competition between the 2 great hunting groups of Zhou State. Yi Baiming has a presumptuous request. I hope to be the referee of this competition." When Yi Baiming mentioned his best friend, he deliberately emphasized his tone. Everyone could hear the special meaning in his words. Yun Songlong and Zhou Quan looked at Yun Sheng with strange expressions. However, Yun Sheng rolled her eyes at Yi Baiming. The latter looked satisfied and returned her a coquettish glance. His surname was Yi Baiming. Yi was the surname of the royal family of Zhou State. In addition to Yi Baiming's noble aura, his identity was self-evident. Song Lang couldn't refuse. It was good that there were people from the royal family present. Otherwise, there would be other explanations later. Song Lang and Yun Songlong didn't have any objections to Yi Baiming taking the initiative to be the referee. Before the competition began, both parties had to have a short discussion to determine the number of people who would compete. The people in the tavern took advantage of this time to clean up the extra tables in the tavern so that the 2 hunting groups wouldn't raise the entire tavern to the ground. Yun Sheng pulled Yun Songlong and Zhou Quan to the side and deliberately lowered her voice. She was also afraid that others would hear her, so she simply cast a magic circle around her. On the other side, the people from the Wolffang hunting group were calm. "Is that Yin Yun stupid?" She actually agreed to Deputy Captain Hua's condition. With their mediocre skills, how can they beat the three of us? Lu Hao said with disdain. At this moment, he even suspected that the Yin Yun, who shocked everyone when she started a massacre in the Hunter's Fort on Mount Daoi that day, was really the harmless-looking girl in front of him. After all, from the looks of it, it had only been a year. How could there be such a huge change in the other party's body? Don't underestimate her. Huanu didn't let down her guard because of Yun Shang's straightforwardness. On the contrary, she felt that there was something hidden behind Yun Shang's smile. I think so too. Didn't you guys notice that even though Yun Songlong is the group leader, including Yun Songlong himself and another hunter, after Yin Yun came, they all followed her lead. As the group leader, Song Lang was even more considerate. If the young hunter listened to Yin Yun, it would make sense. However, even Yun Songlong, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, did the same. That was strange. Oh right, Lu Hao, the scene recorded in your previous magic scroll shows that Yin Yun is a summoner, right? Huan Nu thought left and right, then looked at Yun Sheng's magic staff that was only inlaid with 2 soul stones. She couldn't understand where Yun Sheng's confidence came from. The only possibility was Yun Sheng's summoned beast. However, she didn't see Yun Sheng's summoned beast. Yes, I remember. Her summoned beast doesn't seem to be anything special. It's just a dog? Lu Hao had seen the magic scroll countless times and was very familiar with the scene in the magic scroll. Humph. Then when the time comes, I'll make sure she doesn't even have time to summon. Huan Nu was a sacred magus. Her chanting speed was more than 10 times faster than the average magus. If Yun Sheng still expected to be able to summon a summoned beast during a battle, then she was gravely mistaken. Yi Baiming and Tang Yu stood at the side. No one knew what the two sides were discussing. Tang Yu wanted to take this opportunity to escape. However, when he looked at Yi Baiming next to him, he didn't have any thoughts of running away. Although Yi Baiming was just standing at the side, Tang Yu felt his legs twitching just by standing next to him. If Tang Yu was afraid of Yun Sheng, then he was in absolute awe of Yi Baiming. Those people from the Hunter Corps might not know Yi Baiming's identity, but Tang Yu knew. He had stayed in Wushuan Everlasting School for a period of time. He was very clear about the legends of Yi Baiming's inhuman strength. Chapter 355. The former crown prince who came out of the cold palace, after being imprisoned for many years, shocked the world with a single feat and joined the Wushuan Limitless School. Although he was a prince, he had entered the Wushuan Limitless School at about the same time as Tang Yu. No matter who it was, they treated everyone equally. Tang Yu and Yi Baiming both started from the outer hall and participated in the morning, afternoon, and night training. However, Tang Yu did not last for a year and left the Wushuan Limitless School. Yi Baiming, on the other hand, rose from the outer hall to the inner hall like a rocket in more than a year's time, and finally became the #1 expert in the inner hall. Tang Yu had never seen him make a move, but he had heard that the 2 great experts in the inner hall, senior brother Chang Bai and Bu Jiuxiao, who were martial marquis, could only fight to a draw with Yi Baiming. That was just an old news from a year ago. He did not know what terrifying realm Yi Baiming's strength had risen to after a year had passed. Yi Baiming did not pay attention to Tang Yu's gaze. If not for Yun Sheng, he would not have interacted with someone like Tang Yu. Even with the soundproofing effect of the magic array, Yi Baiming's eyes, from beginning to end, only fell on Yun Sheng's body. Looking at her plump red lips, opening and closing, and her pitch-black eyes, a flash of intelligence, Yi Baiming suddenly felt very pleased in his heart. He actually wanted to tell Yun Sheng that he knew some lip-reading, and he heard everything she said. As expected of a little wild cat, to be able to think of such a moral idea. Inside the magic array, Yun Songlong and Zhou Quan's expressions looked as if they had swallowed an egg. On the other hand, Yun Sheng's beautiful face was flushed red, and her face was beaming with joy. Yi Baiming watched in satisfaction, and his heart softened. During the time when Yun Sheng first disappeared, he felt that he was like a violent wild beast that wanted to tear apart everyone around him. It wasn't until he contacted Yun Sheng that he felt his anger disappear all of a sudden. He liked to stay with Yun Sheng. Even if the two of them did not say anything, Just looking at her frown and smile from afar would make him feel relaxed. Perhaps she was the other half of his life. Inside the magic array, Yun Shang did not notice Yi Baiming's gaze and repeated the plan. Second uncle, Zhou Quan, do you understand? If you understand, give me some reaction. Seeing her second uncle and Zhou Quan's dumbfounded expression, Yun Songlong fell silent. Why did he feel that his niece was so wicked? Yun Songlong Yun was Yun Songyue Yun Songyue Yun was Yun Songyue was Master Yun. Young Master Yun was the kind of ruthless character who could make people laugh even in death. Zhouyu Princess Yunyu was Yun Masters Yuns. I think that's too cowardly. Then what do you want to do? Or do you want to fight with that female magician? Let me tell you, a single fire magic from her can burn your entire body until it's as smooth as a white chicken. Yun Shang threatened Zhou Quan with a fierce face. When Zhou Quan heard this, he felt even more embarrassed. Forget it. Who asked him to meet Yun Songlong? What dignity? Go to hell. Shanger, your arrangement already has the best chance of winning. But do you really want to fight with Huanu? You know her strength. Yun Songlong originally planned to fight with Song Lang and barely win the first round, then let Zhou Quan fight with Huanu, and finally Yun Shang and Lu Hao. However, Yun Shang insisted that she must fight with Huanu. Both of them were magicians. If they really fought, Yun Shang would definitely be at a disadvantage. Second uncle, I have my own way. Don't worry. As long as you follow my arrangement, the Wolf Fang hunting corps will definitely lose. Yun Shang's face was full of confidence. Her confidence also infected Yun Songlong and Zhou Quan. After the discussion, Yun Shang removed the soundproof magic array. The Wolf Fang hunting corps had also finished their discussion. There were a total of 6 people on both sides, each occupying one side. Tang Yu hid in the corner obediently. Yi Baiming walked forward and said loudly, "Today, I am honored to be the witness of the competition between the Sky Extermination Hunting Corps and the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. Both sides have agreed to use the best of 3 method to determine the winner. The loser will follow the rules of the competition. If you are willing to bet, you must accept your loss. Also, this competition is not a life and death battle. Both sides must not overdo it." After Yi Baiming finished speaking, the leaders of both sides walked forward. They each raised a big bowl of wine and drank it. After Song Lang drank the wine, he smashed the bowl in a forthright manner. The sound of the bowl landing on the ground was unusually ear-piercing. "Leader Yun, I have long heard of your name. Today, I am honored to be able to compete with you. No matter if I win or lose, I will definitely not say anything." After saying that, he got into his stance and was about to start the fight. Yun Songlong held the empty bowl and paused for a few seconds. Then, he coughed and said regretfully, "Leader Tsong, I am afraid that your wish will not come true. I will not be the one to compete with you in the first round." Yun Songlong braced himself and took a step back. Under Yun Shang's gaze, Zhou Quan, who had a long face, took a step forward and faced Song Lang. Zhou Quan's voice trembled. "I am sorry, everyone. I am Zhou Quan, an E-class, no, a D-class hunter of the Sky-Felling Hunting Corps. I just advanced a while ago." With every word that Zhou Quan said, the veins on Song Lang's arm, which were popping out due to anger and humiliation, squirmed like earthworms. "Yun Songlong, what do you mean by this? You sent a D-class hunter to fight with me. You are humiliating our Wolf Fang." Song Lang went berserk on the spot. He did not expect that the leader and vice-leader of the Sky-Felling Hunting Corps would not be willing to compete in the first round. An ordinary hunter, a D-class hunter that even Lu Hao could not defeat. Huanu and Lu Hao were also shocked, especially Lu Hao. Zhou Quan, who was obviously the weakest in the Sky-Felling Hunting Corps, was going to compete. Then, the remaining 2 people. Did that not mean that he would most likely be competing with Yun Songlong? With Yun Songlong's skill, he could easily swat away his concealed weapon like swatting a fly. What was the point of competing? The smile on Huanu's face could no longer be maintained. She glared angrily at Yun Shang. What a cunning little girl. No wonder she agreed so readily. Yi Baiming, on the other hand, shook his head and laughed. He had seen everything that Yunshang had mouthed just now. This little wild cat, not only did she have strange medical skills, her way of persuading people was also very strange. The battle formation that Yunshang had arranged was Zhou Quan versus Song Lang, Yun Songlong versus Lu Hao, and herself vs Huan Nu. When such a battle formation was proposed, it was immediately rejected by Yun Songlong. Yun Songlong had his own set of theories. He believed that the battle between hunters was like going into battle to kill the enemy. The first round was the most crucial. The first round must be won. Only then would they be able to achieve a record of 3 wins and 2 losses in one go. However, Yun Shang completely rejected Yun Songlong's point of view. She believed that in a situation where the enemy was strong and they were weak, they had to show weakness to make the other party lower their guard. She even gave a very simple story. It was a story called Tianji's horse racing. Chapter 356. It was about a minister called Tianji who had a horse race with the emperor of his country. The rule of the horse race was to win 2 out of 3 rounds. Every time he competed, he lost, because no one else's horse could beat the emperor's horse. In the end, Tianji used an even more ingenious method under the advice of one of his family's advisors. It was still 2 out of 3 rounds. Both sides would send out 3 types of horses, which were superior, intermediate, and inferior. In the past, Tianji would always lose. But this time, he changed his strategy. He used his inferior horse to fight the emperor's superior horse, the intermediate horse to fight the opponent's inferior horse, and the superior horse to fight the opponent's intermediate horse. In this way, he really obtained a battle record of 2 wins and 1 loss, smoothly obtaining victory. Yun Shang used the story of Tianji's horse race to compare the strength of the Sky Slayer hunting corps and the Wolf Fang hunting corps. Yun Songlong and Song Lang were both superior horses. In terms of strength, Yun Songlong and Song Lang might be neck and neck. Because this competition was limited, Yun Songlong did not have absolute confidence in winning. Yun Shang and Huan Nu were both intermediate horses. The strength of a sorcerer could only be determined after the competition. Zhou Quan and Lu Hao were both inferior horses. Looking at the situation, Lu Hao was slightly stronger than Zhou Quan. If the 3 rounds of competition went according to everyone's expectations, the result would most likely be Yun Songlong drawing, Zhou Quan losing, and Yun Shang being undecided. In this way, the chances of winning would be very low. But if they followed Yun Shang's arrangement, the result would be Zhou Quan losing, Yun Shang winning, and Yun Shang being undecided. In this way, Yun Shang only needed to fight for a draw, and Tianji would be guaranteed to lose. If she won, Tianji would obtain a complete victory. From Yun Shang's explanation, Yun Songlong comprehended a brand new military strategy. He could not help but be shocked. Yun Shang secretly said in her heart, "Great strategist son, please don't blame me. This junior will borrow your military strategy." As a result, the current battle formation was formed. But even if he knew that Yun Shang and the others were playing tricks, Song Lang could not do anything. Who asked the deputy leader of the other party to say before the competition that the order of appearance and personnel would be decided by them. "Fine, let's fight then. You brat, I can break your spine with 1 punch." Blue Wolf had not been angered to this extent for a long time. He vented his anger on Zhou Quan. He had said that he would not overdo it, but since Zhou Quan did not respect him, he could not be blamed for being merciless. As long as he did not kill Zhou Quan, he would not go overdid it. "Guild leader Song, how can I fight with you?" The vice guild leader said that "I'm just going through the motions. In the first round of the competition, I surrender and forfeit." After saying this, Zhou Quan took out a white handkerchief from his body and waved it as if he was performing a magic trick. Their young master had said that if they couldn't win, they could give up. Sometimes, running away was also a kind of victory. Song Lang's face was black and green as if it had been splashed with ink. He pointed at Zhou Quan and then at Yun Shang. After a long time, he finally said, "All right, you are very good. Since that's the case, I'll announce the results." In the first round of the competition, Captain Blue Wolf has won. This is the fastest competition I've ever seen. Yi Biming suspected that Captain Blue Wolf had suffered serious internal injuries. Then let's enter the second round. The second round is... Yi Biming looked at the lineup of both parties. Lu Hao walked out from the Zhonglang Hunting Corps. Yun Songlong walked out from the Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps. Leader Yun, Lu Hao knows that his cultivation is low and cannot be your opponent. But I am a member of the Zhonglang Hunting Corps. Our group's motto is to die. Our heads can be broken, blood can be shed, but we cannot lose our dignity. So I, Lu Hao, must fight this battle. Lu Hao could be considered a man. He knew that there was a great disparity between his strength and Yun Songlong's, but he still braced himself to fight. After hearing Lu Hao's words, the two leaders of the Zhonglang Hunting Corps were delighted. Look, this is what it means to be a hunter. Compared to Zhou Quan, the difference was like heaven and earth. Zhou Quan muttered on the side. Teach, our young master has taught us that as long as there is life, there is hope. If you don't want your life, then you are an idiot. After 20 years, whatever Zhonglang will become a crippled wolf. At that time, it will be my time to shine. If Yun Songlong heard these words, he would probably be foaming at the mouth. He did not know that his niece had already brainwashed the Heaven Extermination Hunting Corps. Lu Hao's insistence made things difficult for Yun Songlong. Logically speaking, this time, he had stood up for Tang Yuqiang and he owed Lu Hao. Logically speaking, he, Yun Songlong, had already been famous for over 10 years. If he really fought against Lu Hao, even if he won, it would still be unreasonable for him to do so. How about this? I will fight with you. But you are a junior and have an order of seniority. I will not fight with you for real. I can see that you are very skilled in using hidden weapons. Our fight will be using hidden weapons. Yun Songlong walked in front of Lu Hao and pointed at the dagger on his waist. You will use all of your moves. I will stand here without moving. You will use all of the hidden weapons on your waist to shoot at me. I will not move a single step and will not use my limbs to block. If you can hit me, or force me to move a single step, then you win. When Yun Songlong said this, Lu Hao's eyes, which originally did not have much confidence, immediately lit up. The two captains of the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps, who had been made a fool of by Yun Shang and had won, also couldn't help but be happy. You are the one who said this, Captain Yun. Lu Hao instantly gritted his teeth. He opened the soft armor on his body, and a row of daggers could be seen on his waist. Lu Hao was good at using hidden weapons, especially throwing daggers. He was famous in the hunting corps for being a fast blade user. He had once killed more than 10 hunting corps soldiers who were on par with him on a mission without any support from anyone. He only relied on the row of hidden weapons on his waist to shoot and kill more than 10 hunting corps soldiers who were on par with him. It was also because of this that the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps made an exception and promoted him to a B-grade hunter. Yun Songlong's strength was very strong, but if he couldn't move his limbs and couldn't even move his feet, then he would be like a dead end. Lu Hao didn't believe that he couldn't hit Yun Songlong under these conditions. Second uncle. Captain. One family was happy while the other was sad. Yun Shang was almost angered to death by her second uncle. She had spent a lot of effort to gain the advantage, but it was wiped out by him with one sentence. It wasn't that she didn't believe in her second uncle, but it was just that a horse could make a mistake. If he wasn't careful and got hit, then they wouldn't be able to compete in the next round. Shang Zhou Quan, believe in me. Yun Songlong smiled faintly at the two of them, appearing very confident. Yun Shang glanced at her second uncle. She realized that at that moment, her second uncle seemed to be radiating the heroic spirit of a young man. If they could completely let her second uncle get rid of the past through this competition and return to his former self, then why not? Either way, they would just have to pay with Tang Yu's life. Thinking of this, Yun Shang felt relieved. Then I'll offend you. Please enlighten us, Captain Yun. Lu Hao and Yun Songlong both got into their stances. Chapter 357. Yun Songlong was just standing there normally. His back was ramrod straight and his eyes were relaxed. He looked like he was taking a stroll after a meal. He didn't look like he was going to compete at all. On the other hand, Lu Hao looked as if he was facing a great enemy. He had been a hunter for many years and had seen a lot of things. However, if his opponent was Yun Songlong, one of the two heroes of Zhou State, he wouldn't be so sure. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lu Hao moved immediately. The 5 fingers of his right hand were like springs as he instantly pulled out 3 daggers. Each dagger was extremely sharp and emitted a chill. The daggers turned into 3 arcs and directly attacked Yun Songlong's face, waist, knees, and other vital points. The daggers were fast, but Yun Songlong was faster. His originally ramrod straight body only made a few small swings and easily dodged Lu Hao's 3 daggers. Lu Hao was also prepared. His left hand instantly threw out another 5 flying daggers. Yun Songlong's figure swayed and quickly dodged a few more times. When the daggers brushed past his body, Lu Hao suddenly jumped back. Using the strength of his legs and waist, he was like a fully tensed crossbow. His left and right hands quickly moved towards his waist. In an instant, the entire tavern was filled with the shadows of knives and daggers. On the walls of the tavern, countless shadows of daggers surrounded Yun Songlong like raindrops. Yun Shang used her Shenong pupil and saw that Lu Hao's left and right hands actually shot out more than 50 daggers. This made Yun Shang very surprised. He was indeed a hunter with the potential of the Wolf Fang hunting corps. 50 daggers could pierce a living person into a hornet's nest. Second uncle couldn't move. How could he dodge this time? Yun Songlong's face didn't change. In front of everyone's eyes, his figure disappeared in an instant. No, he didn't disappear. But Yi Baiming's gaze slightly changed. What a handsome body movement. Yun Songlong's title as a martial arts grandmaster was not undeserved. Just as the 50 over daggers were approaching him like a torrential rain, he exerted strength in his legs. His body was like a roly-poly toy, swaying nonstop in all directions. The bystanders could only see countless afterimages. Every time Yun Songlong dodged, he was only a hair's breadth away. However, Yun Songlong was always able to cleverly dodge a dagger. The dagger that was only a hair's breadth away was actually defused by his roly-poly body technique. His feet, however, did not move a single step, just as Lu Hao had promised him earlier. Lu Hao had just steadied himself. When he saw the current situation, a trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. Second uncle, nice dodge. Yun Shang couldn't help but praise. Good job, Commander. Zhou Quan was also dumbfounded. Song Lang and Huan Nu couldn't help but reveal looks of admiration. Lu Hao's hand began to tremble slightly. His gaze suddenly changed. With a chi sound, a dagger appeared in his hand. That dagger gathered all the fighting energy in Lu Hao's body. Once the dagger was released, it carried a force of several hundred pounds. The fierce fighting energy tore the surrounding air apart. The air seemed to have been heated by the dagger, emitting a scorching smell and rolling heat waves. At this time, Yun Songlong had already dodged most of the daggers. He also aimed at that dagger. His body and eyes reacted at the same time. His body slightly swayed, and just as he was about to dodge, there was a soft hiss, as if a poisonous snake was hissing in his ear. The dagger exploded in midair, instantly turning into countless sharp fragments. Lu Hao, that brat, was smart. When Song Lang and Huan Nu saw the dagger suddenly explode, they broke out in cold sweat. However, when they saw that the dagger had exploded into hundreds and thousands of fragments, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. Yun Songlong, didn't you have a body technique? You could dodge more than 50 daggers in one breath. Could it be that you could dodge more than 100 dagger fragments at once? Lu Hao was different from the other hunters who were good at using concealed weapons. He usually practiced with his dagger, not only using fighting energy, but he also liked to research his own unique method of using concealed weapons. He could use concealed weapons, he could use his waist, he could use his hands, and he could use his brain. Yun Songlong's strength was much stronger than Lu Hao had imagined. Lu Hao had already used up all his concealed weapons, but Yun Songlong was still handling them with ease. In a moment of desperation, Lu Hao came up with a plan. He pulled out the last dagger on his body and quietly poured his fighting energy into the dagger. The fighting energy of a revered martial artist was no small matter. He quickly poured his fighting energy into the dagger and quickly threw it out. The whole process only took a few seconds. However, in these few seconds, the dagger was torn apart and shattered by the fighting energy in the air. The fragments produced were comparable to countless daggers. Lu Hao believed that no matter how good Yun Songlong's body technique was, this time, it was impossible for him to dodge his clever move. Countless fragments, each of them flashed with a cold light. They whistled as they approached Yun Songlong in an instant. However, for some unknown reason, Yun Songlong actually stopped dodging. No one knew if he was thinking of how to dodge, or if he had decided to just give up. Just as Yun Shang and the others were feeling nervous, Yun Songlong suddenly shouted, "Retreat!" When his voice fell into everyone's ears, they only felt their eardrums buzzing as if thunder had suddenly descended. Those with weaker cultivations would probably immediately bleed from their 7 orifices and injure their internal organs. That shout formed a waterfall of fighting energy. The fragments of the dagger, which were originally less than a foot away from Yun Songlong, all fell to the ground like stones sinking into the ocean. Looking at the fragments of the dagger, each of them had already been compressed and deformed by the fighting energy. They were like deformed pushpins. Lu Hao's face was pale. He looked at the fragments of the dagger on the ground and then looked at Yun Songlong, who was still standing upright like a green pine tree. Only then did he know how big the gap between him and Yun Songlong was. Strength was everything. No matter how skillful he was with concealed weapons, or how ingenious his techniques were, he was still inferior to Yun Songlong, who was standing still. Lu Hao was like a defeated rooster. He saluted Yun Songlong with cupped hands and said wholeheartedly, "Commander Yun, I lost." Only then did Yi Baiming announce, "Commander Yun wins the second round of the competition. After 2 rounds, 1 win and 1 loss. The third round is naturally between me and Yen Yun." Huan Nu's charming eyes slightly raised. She walked out and patted Lu Hao. "Lu Hao, you did very well just now. As long as you work hard enough, one day you will also reach Commander Yun's cultivation." Although they won the first round, Song Lang and Huan Nu were full of anger. Although they lost the second round, Song Lang, Huan Nu and Lu Hao were wholeheartedly convinced. This was the rule of survival for the hunters. They would rather lose openly than win without knowing the reason behind it. Yun Songlong also looked at Lu Hao approvingly and nodded. In that situation just now, the opponent was only an ordinary young hunter. It was really not easy for him to react so quickly. Only then did Lu Hao pull himself together. He secretly thought that in the future, Yun Songlong would be his goal. He must surpass him. The third round of the competition was the last, and also the most important one. Yun Shang and Huan Nu both walked out. Chapter 358. Huan Nu smiled and said, "Little girl, you are so scheming. You forced me to take action. I thought we would only have 2 rounds of competition." Huan Nu originally planned to win the first 2 rounds, but she didn't expect that Yun Shang's last-minute plan would force her to enter the third round. "Deputy Commander Hua, you are too polite. Both of us are magicians. You are older than me, so I call you sister. Since you are my elder, you can decide how we will compete in this round." As the saying goes, one shouldn't slap a smiling face. Yun Shang had a delicate appearance. Now that she called her sister, Huan Nu was really embarrassed to be angry with her. "Hee, since that's the case, I'll call Vice Commander Yen little sister. I heard that you are a summoner?" Huan Nu's beautiful eyes wandered as she wondered if Yun Shang would play any tricks in the competition later. "Although I am a summoner, I don't often use my summoned beasts to fight. Since we are both magicians, of course, we will use magic. I promise that I won't use my summoned beasts in the competition later." Yun Shang's words made Huan Nu even more puzzled. She didn't use her summoned beasts. She was only an archmage. How dare she compete with her, a saint magician? "Let's compete in magic. My magic realm is higher than yours. If I fight with you directly, I will be bullying the weak. Why don't we try something else?" Huan Nu smiled. She walked forward and held Yun Shang's hand. The two looked very intimate. Several men at the side looked at each other. What did these two women want? A magician's ability is divided into several kinds. For example, magic sensitivity, chanting, and destructive power. We are not a temple, so we won't compete in magic sensitivity. As for destructive power, this tavern is the property of the Hunter Union. If we make a big scene, the old guys of the Hunter Union won't let us go. So, let's go to an open space outside for this competition. Huanu said in a charming voice. Sister, you're right. Are we going to compete in magic chanting? Yunsheng looked well-behaved. Her pair of black eyes made her look even more innocent. Seeing her like this, it was really hard to imagine that she had used so many methods earlier. Yi Baiming watched from the side and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Yet another person had been tricked. Little Wildcat's tricks worked on both men and women. Let's compete in magic incantations. You know intermediate fire magic, right? Huanu originally wanted Yunsheng to follow her pace, but who knew that unknowingly, she was following Yunsheng's pace. I know a little, Yunsheng said modestly. Then let's have a competition. Let's see who can shoot out the most flame bursts in the shortest amount of time. Huanu said. Yunsheng thought for a while and quickly agreed. Considering that the destructive power of the flame explosion could be big or small, they decided to proceed with the third round of the competition outside the city. Sister, there is a river in front. Let's use the flame explosion, one after the other, and see whose fire magic is better. Huanu saw that Yunsheng didn't object all the way. She felt proud in her heart, but also felt that something was wrong. Blazing explosion was the second type of fire magic that Yunsheng had comprehended. It was also a type of intermediate magic. For an archmagus, casting blazing explosion wasn't strenuous, but it wasn't easy either. Generally speaking, an archmagus would be able to chant 6 to 10 blazing explosions at a time when they were in a state of deep meditation. Huanu said that it was a fair competition, so she also used a special sealing spell to reduce her magic cultivation to that of an archmage. Even the last 2 soul stones on her magic scepter couldn't be used. Her actions seemed very fair. In the eyes of Wolfong and Skyfeld, it was also considered fair. However, Yunsheng sneered in her heart. Huanu was indeed worthy of being the vice-captain. If she hadn't lived 2 lives, she would have been fooled by her thoughts and calculations. Only mages, especially those who were experienced mages, would know that the difference between a Saint Magus and an Archmage wasn't just a difference in the amount of magic power. Since Huanu could become a Saint Magus, it meant that her magic control was very strong. It was at least 10 times stronger than an ordinary Archmage. This meant that even if they had the same amount of magic power, an Archmage could use sensitive magic control to fire no less than 30 flame explosions in a row. Therefore, if this competition went according to Huanu's plan, Yunsheng would lose, and lose miserably. However, how could Yunsheng let Huanu manipulate her so easily? The river that the two of them chose for the competition was the largest river outside the Jade capital. Due to the dry weather, the river had shrunk to half of its original size. Brownish-yellow sand was exposed on the riverbed. Sister, why don't we just use magic together and see who's better? Yunsheng blinked innocently. Sure, everyone, look carefully. I've already used magic to seal myself. For the time being, I'm an archmage like Sister Yin. Huanu showed everyone. Then let's begin. Let's start chanting at the same time. Huanu looked modest. She took out her magic scepter. Yunsheng also held her magic scepter tightly. Huanu's magic scepter was just like her clothes and appearance. It was a red jade bone scepter. Its color was like jade, and it was half a person's height. It was much more eye-catching than Yunsheng's enigmatic bone scepter. She also wanted to show off. She threw the red jade bone scepter in her hand high up in the air. With a beautiful hand movement, she held the bone scepter in her hand and started chanting. Eh. As soon as she started chanting, Huanu felt that something was wrong. Why was the fire magical element in the surroundings so scarce? Just now, she had clearly sensed that the fire magical elements in this area should be very abundant. Why couldn't she sense it all of a sudden? Just as Huanu was feeling surprised, she suddenly felt a violent magical fluctuation. This feeling, Huanu, who was chanting, immediately looked to her side. Her expression changed at once. Everyone present was a warrior. They didn't feel much of the change that happened. However, Yi Baiming, who was also a mage, narrowed his eyes slightly. Huanu felt a tidal wave of magical elements rushing toward Yin Yun, who was beside her. Among them, there were magical elements that Huanu had sensed when she was chanting. How could it be? How could it be? As the surrounding fire magical elements were sucked away little by little, Huanu's beautiful face was full of disbelief. She even forgot to chant. Her face was like a delicate spring flower that had been sucked dry of all its nutrients, quickly withering. Her beautiful eyes widened, as if she had seen a ghost. She stared at Yun Shang, her small mouth slightly open. Chapter 359. She could not understand how the other party, who was also a fire mage, could steal all the fire magical elements that originally belonged to her like a group of bandits when they started chanting at the same time. Leader, the deputy leader's condition seems a little strange. Although they were not mages, the two members of the Wolf Fang hunting corps felt that something was wrong with Huanu. Although the deputy leader of Huanu was a woman, she was famous for being resourceful in the group. During the development of the Wolf Fang hunting corps, they had encountered many crises, big and small, and Huanu had helped Wolf resolve them one by one. No matter how difficult the situation was, Huanu had never been as abnormal as she was today. Of course, Huanu did not know that the person she encountered today was not an ordinary fire mage, but the almost insane Yun Sheng. A mage's magical power was affected by many factors, but it was recognized that the more magic souls one had, the higher their magical affinity would be, and they would enjoy a certain level of priority when obtaining magical elements. Although Yun Shang and Huanu had a gap in strength and could not control magic as well as Huanu, the advantage of her 5 elemental magic souls made up for it to a certain extent. In addition, her magic scepter had the brand of the wind spirit, so her chanting was smoother and faster than the average person. However, the most important thing was that she was going to compete in fire magic today. Huanu thought that she had the absolute advantage in the battle of fire magic, but Yun Sheng did not let her have her way, because she had the brand of the Hellfire of the Elves on her. The Hellfire of the Elves was the most precious fire seed of the Fire Spirit King, one of the 4 nature spirit kings. It was known as the King of all fires. Once the Hellfire of the Elves appeared, all the fires in the boundless land would pale in comparison. Not to mention, the surrounding fire magical elements immediately swarmed over when they smelled the Hellfire of the Elves, fighting to be the first to flatter it. To put it in perspective, Huanu and Yun Sheng were engaged in a tug-of-war competition. Due to the Hellfire of the Elves, Yun Sheng had 100 people on her side, while Huanu was left with only 1 person. The outcome of this competition had been decided from the beginning. That's impossible. Almost all of the fire magic elements have entered her body. Huanu gripped the red jade bone staff tightly. His fiery red nails pierced into his palm, and he felt a piercing pain. The pain made Huanu sober up a little. Impossible. It was impossible for an ordinary great magus to have such powerful magic senses. Could she be? Huanu thought again, and suddenly remembered that Yin Yun had said that she was a doctor. It was very likely that she had used some kind of forbidden medicine to blindly enhance her magic sensitivity in order to win the battle. I can't be scared by him. The competition is still going on, so I must continue. Even if there is only a small amount of fire magic elements, I can still chant the most perfect flame explosion. Huanu's complexion became serious. He immediately adjusted his state of mind and calmed down. Then, he began to chant the second chant. So what if he had a large amount of magic elements? Only a smart mage would know that the wisest choice was to use the least amount of magic elements to create the best effect. Generally speaking, a mage's physique was not strong. If Yin Yun had absorbed the magic elements that her body could not bear in order to win the battle, then her body would probably not be able to bear it when he released the magic later. Fire magic elements were the most dangerous of the 4 natural magic elements. They were full of violence. Huan Nu had once met a mage who had taken a similar kind of forbidden medicine. His body was directly torn apart by the violent fire magic elements, and he burned himself into a pile of ashes. Yin Yun, you asked for it. Huan Nu calmed down and continued to chant the second chant. Soon, she rushed into the surrounding environment to obtain the fire magic elements. Seeing that Huan Nu had recovered, the two members of the Wolf Fong Hunting Corps could not help but feel relieved. They believed that Huan Nu, the deputy leader, would be able to easily defeat the arrogant female mage this time. Yi Baiming and Tang Yu stood aside. Tang Yu's small eyes were anxiously looking at Yunsheng and Huan Nu. He was in a dilemma. He wanted Yunsheng to win, but at the same time, he did not want her to win. If she won, his life might be saved. But if she won, it would prove that she was more outstanding than him. Yunsheng's appearance had seriously threatened Tang Yu's position in the Yun mansion. It's better to win this round, and then let Mother ask the Bloody Hand Tycoon to kill that eyesore. Tang Yu thought insidiously. While they were waiting, Huan Nu and Yunsheng finished chanting one after another. Middle-level magic, flame explosion. Huan Nu was the first to finish chanting. 2 soul stones on the red jade bone scepter in her hand lit up at the same time. They were the soul stones of 80-year and 200-year magical beasts. The ratio of Huan Nu's magic scepter was quite good. Several flame explosions were shot out from the magic scepter. They were like meteors, rumbling through the sky and exploding on the surface of the river. Suddenly, water splashed everywhere on the surface of the river. The stones on the riverbed were also overturned by the shocking impact of the flame explosions. 1, 2, 3. Lu Hao and Zhou Quan could not hold back. They rushed forward and counted the number of flame explosions. There were a total of 15 flame explosions. The water on the surface of the river was blown up by the explosions and splashed several meters high. It looked like the surface of the sea had been hit by a violent storm. 15 flame explosions. It was not a lot, but it was barely enough. Huan Nu thought. She turned her gaze and looked at Yunsheng again. At this time, Yunsheng also waved the bewitching bone scepter in her hand. When the scepter was raised, the flame explosion did not appear as expected. Could it be that she had been chanting for a long time, but she did not even succeed in chanting the basic flame explosion? Tang Yu's heart thumped. He almost cursed out loud. She must be doing it on purpose. She wanted to kill him on purpose. Just when everyone was surprised, a sharp cry came from the sky. Everyone raised their heads at the same time, only to hear a flaming bird spread its flaming wings in the air. It dragged its peacock-like tail, and every feather that was formed from flames was clearly textured. That is, flame transformation? Huan Nu could not help but cry out in surprise. The flame bird gave a crisp cry. Suddenly, its head and tail swayed, and the entire bird turned into a fireball. As the fireball rolled, hundreds of flame feathers fell from the sky. When the feathers were in the air, they turned into fist-sized flame explosions. Boom, boom, boom. It was too late to say, but it was too fast. Countless feather-shaped flame explosions hit the water at the same time. This pitiful river had only just digested 15 flame bursts a while ago when it immediately encountered the magic madman, Yunsheng. Hundreds of flame feathers turned into flame explosions. It was as if a submachine gun had swept across the river. On the surface of the river, waves splashed everywhere. Before the water vapor could splash, it was evaporated into white vapor by the high temperature of hundreds of degrees. The riverbed was also splashed with mud, and countless rocks were smashed into dust. The flame bird in the sky disappeared, but the water vapor and smoke in front of them had not dispersed. On the riverbank, the few people who were petrified did not even notice that they were drenched in mud and water vapor. Improved flame explosion, 9 heaven phoenix explosion. Yunsheng wiped the sweat from her forehead and sighed. Chapter 360. Yunsheng also did not expect that the fire magic soul in her body would undergo such a huge change after absorbing the fire of elves. Originally, She had only wanted to absorb a little more magic elements and release 20 to 30 flame explosions. Who would have thought that she would accidentally absorb too much fire magic elements in the air? When she finished chanting and was about to release the magic, she felt that the fire magical elements in her body were about to explode. This feeling was like a balloon that was suddenly filled with too much gas. If this continued, it would explode sooner or later. In order to find a suitable outlet, she had no choice but to change the flame explosion at the last minute. That was how she came up with her third fire magic spell. At the same time, it was also an improved fire magic spell. Its power was comparable to that of a high-level spell, the Nine Heavens Phoenix Explosion. As it was her first time using it, Yunsheng was not very satisfied with the form of a flaming bird formed by the fire magical elements. In her opinion, the form of a phoenix could be more perfect. But at least the effect of the flame explosion was achieved. This could be seen from the stunned faces of the few people. When the white smoke dissipated, the original appearance of the river was also revealed. The river was full of holes from the explosion. Not a single drop of water could be seen in the river. The entire riverbed was also blown to smithereens. It was also a fire magic spell. The result was obvious at a glance. Yi Baiming coughed a few times. He had dodged in time just now. Among the crowd, he was the only one with a clean face and clothes. Tang Yu was the most miserable. He was standing close to the riverbed, and the mud that splashed out completely turned him into a mud figurine. The competition is over. I think everyone already knows the result. Yi Baiming secretly gave Yunsheng a thumbs up. This fellow was really a monster. This new magic spell came at the right time. Not only did she win, but she also made the leader of the Heaven Extermination Hunters proud. Pooh, it stinks. Tang Yu also reacted. He spat out the river mud in his mouth and looked at Yunsheng. His anger immediately turned into joy. We won. Haha, that's great. I don't have to die. Shut up. Yi Baiming rolled his eyes, picked Tang Yu up, and tossed him aside. Tang Yu's beer barrel-like body flew out with a whoosh. His 4 feet were in the air, and he was like an upside-down tortoise as he fell into the muddy riverbank. Now, he could finally have some peace and quiet. I lost. Hua Nu's voice was as soft as a mosquito bite. Her mind was filled with the scene of the Nine Heavens Phoenix Explosion. That was a spell that she had never seen before. She was able to complete the incantation in such a short period of time and cast it perfectly. She had really lost. She had lost completely. Even if she hadn't used her magic, she wouldn't have been able to use such magic. A sacred magus had actually lost so miserably against an archmagus. This could be considered the worst defeat that Huanu had ever experienced since he was born. You must have cheated. How could an archmagus release such inconceivable magic? Lu Hao couldn't stand it anymore. He pointed at Yunsheng and was tongue-tied. He didn't know how to describe the magic that she had just used. God knew that he had been dumbfounded just now. It was said that magic was beautiful but useless, while combat skills were simple but useless. Lu Hao had always thought so. But today, after witnessing the magic of the other party's mage, Yin Yun, his view was completely overturned. For a moment, he regretted becoming a warrior. He should have reincarnated as a mage. After the shock, he was enraged. The other party was just an archmagus. There were plenty of archmagi in their hunting corps. But if there was one who could release such a magic, he, Lu Hao, would have to follow the other party's surname. So, after thinking about it, Lu Hao could only come to one conclusion. The other party had either concealed her strength or consumed forbidden drugs. I'm indeed an archmagus, but my strength has improved recently. I should be able to break through and become a master magus soon. Yunsheng's face was calm. As for the forbidden drugs, did you see me take them when you were walking with me? Or can I go to the temple with you now to see if there are any remnants of the magic medicine in my body? No need. If you win, you win. I've already lost. I just want to ask you one thing. Yin Yun, how old are you this year? Wenu returned to normal after experiencing the humiliation just now. Her character was like the fire magic element. She was straightforward. She would burn it all in one go. Once it was over, she would let it go. I'm 8 years old this year. I'll be 9 soon, Yun Sheng said. Huanu's mouth twitched. Song Lang's face stiffened. Lu Hao's jaw almost dropped. The three of them said in unison, "You're only 8 years old. That's too abnormal. An 8-year-old archmagus. No, she would soon become a master magus. This kind of person was not only a monster, but also a genius at the level of abnormal. No wonder the strong man at the level of Emperor Zhao accepted her as his disciple. Then why are you in the Sky Hunting Corps? With your magic cultivation and ability to comprehend magic, you should be recommended to join the mainland's magic elite camp." Huanu rolled her eyes. In her impression, such an abnormal person should not wander around the continent. They should all be caught and sent to the mainland's magic elite camp to compete with the group of abnormal magic geniuses. What mainland's magic elite camp? No one told me to go. Yun Sheng shrugged. Age would always be her Achilles heel. Looking at her appearance, the few people at the side only had one thought: strangle her to death. The three people from the Wolf-Fong Hunting Corps were completely speechless. Previously, they were still ashamed of Yun Shang's deceitful methods. However, after many competitions, they clearly understood that the other party did not use any despicable methods to win. On the contrary, the Sky Hunting Corps knew their strengths and weaknesses very well. Zhou Quan was the weakest among them, so they did not fight force with force. Instead, they simply admitted defeat. In this way, not only did they preserve their strength, but they also avoided casualties. This method was the most feasible for the Sky Hunting Corps. And the person who made this decision was precisely that abnormal magician who was not even 8 years old, Yin Yun. The Wolf-Fong Hunting Corps and the others had a premonition that under the leadership of Yun Songlong and Yin Yun, the Sky Hunting Corps would very likely become a legend in the hunting world of Zhou State. It was even possible that they could make up for the regret of Zhou State's hunting world and become the first SSS-level hunting corps in the history of Zhou State. Of course, this was all in the future. Chapter 361. The Wolf-Fong Hunting Corps accepted their loss and did not continue to pester them. Tang Yu was also pulled out from the mud by Yun Songlong. His head was covered in mud, and he had already fainted from suffocation. If he went back like this, even his biological mother, Yun Songxue, would not be able to recognize him. When Yun Sheng saw this, she pulled out a 4 Seasons glazed needle and pricked him a few times. That kid jumped up like a dead pig that had been scalded by boiling water. Tang Yu realized that he could not make a sound. He pointed at Yun Sheng with a face full of anger. "You talk too much. Before I find out the cause of death, you shall remain mute." Yun Sheng was not in a good mood. She was going to conduct an autopsy later. If not for the fact that she still needed Tang Yu's testimony, she really wanted to do what Yi Baiming did and kick Tang Yu until he would forever be a dead tortoise. Seeing Tang Yu's appearance, Lu Hao felt a little better. "The three of you, we are willing to accept our loss and agree to let Vice Commander Yin conduct the autopsy. However, this is also because I believe that Deputy Commander Yan's character will definitely uphold justice for me." Lu Hao was a magnanimous person. He led the members of the Sky Hunting Corps to the Yun residence. It's the Yun residence. When they saw Yun Songlong and the disoriented Tang Yu, the family and relatives of the deceased Miss Xian Yu all gathered around. Uncle, Auntie. Seeing the angry crowd that was about to erupt into a conflict at any time, Lu Hao walked out. He roughly repeated Yun Shang's words to her. "Nonsense, Lu Hao. Xian Yu is already dead, and you still want to humiliate her corpse. Moreover, look at those people behind you. They are all from the residence of Yun. How can you believe what they say?" Xian Yu's father walked out. He was an old scholar who had studied and cared about his reputation the most. After his daughter was defiled by that bastard from the Yun residence, he had once thought of marrying his daughter into the Yun residence. Who knew that his foolish daughter would not say a word and hang herself outside the Yun residence? Now, they were saying that Xian Yu didn't hang herself. If this wasn't nonsense, then what was? "Father, you said earlier that Miss Xian Yu committed suicide. Let me ask you, If you were in her shoes, would you be able to hang yourself on such a tall, ancient tree? Yunsheng also knew that an autopsy was going to challenge the nerves of these ancient people. She simply took a few steps back until she reached the ancient banyan tree. The celestial jade was found hanging under the ancient tree. After being reminded by Yunsheng, Xinyu's father walked to the ancient tree and looked up at the treetops. He was about 1.7 meters tall. Xianyu was a woman, so she was only about 1.6 meters tall. However, even with Xianyu's father's height, he was still more than a meter away from the top of the ancient banyan tree, which was closest to the ground. Perhaps my daughter used a stepping stone and hung herself on it. Xianyu's father thought for a moment and looked at the rock not far away. He reluctantly replied, moreover, we have already invited a doctor from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Dr. Chang came to take a look, and he also insisted that our Xianyu committed suicide by hanging herself. However, from what I know, when the Yun residence people found the corpse, there were no rocks or stools around. Instead, there were many signs of struggle beside Miss Xianyu's hand. Yunsheng walked to the coffin and grabbed Xianyu's hand. I wonder if Dr. Chang checked these wounds at that time. Indeed, there were many small wounds on her wrist and fingers that had already changed color. Xianyu's father was a scholar. How would he know so much? He didn't know how to respond. In the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, Cheng Sihai was in the middle of a discussion with a few doctors. Suddenly, someone outside requested to see him. The person said that he was Xianyu's family and hoped that Dr. Chang could spare some time to conduct an autopsy. Autopsy? What's going on? Didn't we already make it clear? Why do you still want to conduct an autopsy? Cheng Sihai's expression turned unfriendly. Ever since the incident with the volunteer medical consultation, Cheng Sihai had been plagued with bad luck. The medical reputation that he had accumulated over the years was almost completely destroyed. When Dagwa made him stop doing consultations for a period of time, even the ordinary refining of pills was handed over to others. A large portion of a doctor's income came from conducting consultations. Cheng Sihai stopped doing consultations, and his income was greatly reduced. The worst thing was that Qi Fengfei even ordered people to investigate his past pill refining and purchasing records. This caused a large portion of his income from medicinal herbs to be cut off. On one hand, Cheng Sihai wanted to restore his medical reputation. On the other hand, he had to think of a way to earn some income. Coincidentally, at this time, the Yun residence incident that shocked the entire Jade capital happened. He also happened to have some friendship with Xianyu's father, that old scholar. Cheng Sihai was duty-bound and took the initiative to act as a coroner for a while. His intention was to borrow the Yun residence incident that had caused a commotion in the entire city to regain some attention. He wasn't proficient in autopsy to begin with. He merely skimmed through some of the notes of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, and based on the normal signs of hanging, he was able to write a death certificate. The diagnosis written on it was that the patient had hanged himself. In fact, through this incident at the Yun residence, Cheng Sihai had regained some of his reputation. When Daogua's anger had also dissipated, and he was relieved to allow him to resume his treatment. Since his goal had been achieved, Cheng Sihai naturally wasn't willing to touch any unlucky corpses. Dr. Cheng, the other party, said that Xianyu might not have committed suicide. He said that your autopsy was wrong. The person who came to report the news was also at a loss. He was only a messenger. Who dares to question this doctor's examination? Or does he think that he is better than the doctors of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion? Cheng Sihai was dissatisfied. The other party said that the female doctor of the Little Xiantong is young. The messenger said vaguely, Little Xiantong? I'm afraid it's Yunsheng. Only she dares to question our Medicine Emperor Pavilion and dare to conduct an autopsy. Cheng Sihai, our Medicine Emperor Pavilion can't lose to Little Xiantong. Let's go. I'll go with you. Qi Fengfei walked out. She had been in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion for the past few days. Today, when she came down, she heard the news. She had investigated Yunsheng's background and found out that she was actually the daughter of the eldest son of the Yun residence, Yun Songhai. If she could make use of Tang Yu's matter this time, she would be able to defeat little Xiantong in one fell swoop. This was much more efficient than starting from the herb supplier and slowly erasing little Xiantong. When Cheng Sihai heard this, he had no choice but to put down the work in his hand. Carrying a medicine box, he rushed over with Qi Fengfei. When they arrived outside the Yun residence, a simple shed was already set up outside. There was a group of Yun residence's guards outside, blocking the people who came to watch the show. "We're from the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. We're here to conduct an autopsy." After showing their doctor badge, Cheng Sihai and Qi Fengfei walked in. The scene had already been cleaned up, and most of the irrelevant people had already been asked to leave. Those present were the 3 people from the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps, the 3 people from the Sky Expedition Hunting Corps, Tang Yu, and Xian Yu's parents. Seeing their daughter's corpse being moved out, Xian Yu's parents burst into tears. "Yun Sheng, what do you mean by this?" Cheng Sihai took a look and saw that it was really Yun Sheng. He immediately flew into a rage. He had really seen a ghost. Ever since he met this brat, he didn't have any good days. His status in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion had plummeted and his reputation was ruined. Occasionally, he would be questioned when he conducted an autopsy. The main culprit was this damned brat in front of him. "Make way." The door of the Yun residence opened. Old General Yun Ba walked out accompanied by Uncle Yun and Yun Sangxue. Yun Sangxue saw her precious son's appearance. His face was bruised and swollen, his body was covered in mud, and he couldn't even speak. She immediately fumed. Like a shrew, she loudly scolded. "Who was it? Who made my Yuer like this? It's already good that he's still breathing." Yun Shang glanced at Yun Sangxue and then looked at the cold corpse. A sharp light flashed through her eyes, causing Yun Sangxue to immediately become mute. Yun Ba was still in the residence, racking his brains on how to deal with the bloody hand tycoon. Suddenly, he heard Uncle Yun say that Yun Songlong and Yun Sheng had brought a group of people to the residence. Among them were people from the Wolf Fang Hunting Corps. Could it be that the negotiations had failed? Yun Ba couldn't help but walk out. Chapter 362. As soon as they reached the entrance, they heard that they were going to conduct an autopsy. Yun Sheng saw that almost everyone had arrived. Everyone. Since everyone is here, I will explain the reason for the second autopsy today. I suspect that Miss Xian Yu was murdered. Murdered? Other than the people from the 2 large hunting regiments, everyone else was shocked. Cheng Sihai even stuttered. Nonsense. Her eyes were protruding when she died. Her tongue was sticking out, and there were obvious strangulation marks on her neck. How could it be murder? You're obviously spouting nonsense to protect the people from the Yun residence. When Xian Yu's parents heard this, they were also very agitated. That's right, our Xian Yu was killed by that bastard Tang Yu. A life for a life. Lu Hao, don't you want to avenge Xian Yu? Lu Hao was silent. He looked at Yun Sheng. I hope that you can give a reasonable explanation. All right, Cheng Sihai, you and I are both doctors. You and I will conduct the second autopsy together, Yun Sheng said, then took out a simple mask from the beast language ring and put it on her face. Yun Sheng also took out a pair of modified gloves made of animal skin. The conditions in the boundless world could not be compared to the modern world, but some protective measures were still necessary. Yun Sheng asked Lin Yao to help sew the gloves and mask using breathable animal skin. What's that? Cheng Sihai saw Yun Sheng put on the mask and did not understand. He used to think that Yun Sheng was weird, but after seeing her today, he despised her even more. It's a medical device used to isolate the body. You won't understand even if I explain. It was not Yun Sheng's first time coming into contact with a corpse. Even if the corpse was preserved with a magic array, it was easy for it to mutate in such hot weather. It would be bad if it was infected with unnecessary germs. However, there was no need to tell Cheng Sihai these things. I don't need to examine the corpse anymore. I already said last time that she hanged herself, Cheng Sihai said with disdain. Yun Sheng ignored him and continued to examine Xian Yu's corpse. Due to the protection of the magic array, Xian Yu's corpse did not decay, and the texture of her skin was very elastic. Yunsheng had already roughly examined Xian Yu's body earlier, but because of Xian Yu's father's request, she had to invite Cheng Sihai before she could examine the body, so she didn't start the detailed examination. Yunsheng checked Xian Yu's mouth and nose, then her hands and feet, then her neck, as well as her ears and other more concealed parts. Please help me turn over. Yunsheng asked Cheng Sihai to help Xian Yu up. What kind of examination is this? Cheng Sihai was furious. A mere doctor actually dared to order him, a dignified individual doctor around. However, with so many pairs of eyes looking at her, Qi Fengfei said coldly, "Listen to her." Qi Fengfei actually didn't understand what Yunsheng wanted to do. She had already completed the normal autopsy procedure. Cheng Sihai could only help Yunsheng turn over the corpse. Yunsheng brushed Xian Yu's long hair and touched her cervical vertebrae. "It's done. I can already be sure that Miss Xian Yu was murdered," Yunsheng said firmly. "How can you tell?" Qi Fengfei's gaze changed. "There are no marks on her hands and feet. If she hanged herself, how can there be no signs of her struggling to hang herself? However, the most important thing is her neck and chin. People who hang themselves have their cervical vertebrae broken downwards, but Miss Xian Yu's cervical vertebrae are broken upwards." Yunsheng gave an example. The few doctors present fell into deep thought. Everyone else was at a loss. "Tang Yu, Lu Hao, both of you come out. I'll have the two of them do a demonstration for everyone to see." Yunsheng also knew that it would be difficult for ordinary people to understand what she was saying, so she might as well do a live demonstration. Reconstructing a murder scene was a common occurrence in modern European and American detective films. However, this was the first time something like this had ever happened in the boundless continent. Lu Hao walked out. When Tang Yu heard that, he also had to come out. He was so scared that he hid behind Yun Sangxue, but Yi Baiming was faster than him and grabbed him. Yi Baiming casually threw Tang Yu away, and he rolled over like a rubber ball. Yunsheng laughed secretly. This sly fox was addicted to throwing things around. "You bitch, what do you want to do?" When Yun Sangxue saw Yunsheng, she was filled with anger. Now that she saw that Yunsheng wanted to make an example of her precious son, she immediately cursed like a shrew in the streets. She was furious and wanted to go forward and argue with Yunsheng. Tang Yu could not speak, so he could only gesture with his hands. What a joke. Lu Hao wanted to chop him into pieces immediately. What kind of ending would he have if he fell into his hands? Either let him cooperate with the simulation, or let the Wolf Fong hunting corps take care of him. Your choice. Yunsheng replied indifferently. This pair of mother and son were really incorrigible. They did not even think about who she was doing all this for. Sangxue, a little impatience spoils great plans. Yunba spoke. Yun Sangxue looked around again, thinking that since her father was here, that Hunter would not really do anything to Yuer. She could only retreat. Tang Yu walked over with trepidation under the angry gazes of countless people. "Uncle Yun, please prepare another rope. Remember to make it thicker and sturdier. Your little young master's neck is a few sizes thicker than an average person's." Yunsheng's words scared Tang Yu so much that he could not even breathe. Yi Baiming coughed softly, while Zhou Quan was trying so hard to hold back his laughter that he was about to suffer internal injuries. The rope was quickly brought over. Yunsheng handed the rope to Lu Hao. "Brother Lu, please use this rope to try to strangle Tang Yu's neck. Don't use too much force and leave him with a breath." Yun Sangshua's face paled when she heard this. Tang Yu was so frightened that his entire body trembled nonstop. "Don't worry, I will be very careful." Lu Hao's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He tugged at the rope in his hand and walked behind Tang Yu. Yunba frowned, but when he saw Yunsheng's relaxed expression, he could not help but sigh in his heart. He turned his head away, not wanting to see Tang Yu being tortured. Tang Yu was so frightened that he wanted to run away, but how could he be Lu Hao's opponent? The latter held down his hands and pulled the rope back. The rope, which was as thick as a thumb, was stuck around Tang Yu's neck. He instantly felt a lump in his throat as he struggled with all his limbs. Although he was fat, His strength was no match for the martial honor level Lu Hao. The latter hated Tang Yu to the bone, but he still remembered Yun Shang's earlier words and left him with a breath. That's enough. Yuer. My poor Yuer. Yun Sangxue broke free from the attendant beside her and pounced forward. Only then did Lu Hao release his grip. Tang Yu's eyes had already rolled back into his head and his legs were twitching. He looked like he was sick and was breathing in less than he was exhaling. Yun Shang, you venomous woman, do you want to torture our Yu-er to death? He's already fainted. What else do you want him to do? Yun Sangxue saw her son, Tang Yu, on the verge of death and hugged him as she sobbed. However, no one around them showed any sympathy for them. Chapter 363. Everyone in Jade Capital knew that the reason why Tang Yu had ended up like this was all because of Yun Sangshue's pampering, smashing, robbing, and robbing women from good families. This time, even if he could wash away the crime of causing Xin Yu's death, Tang Yu's reputation in the Jade Capital would also be tarnished. He would definitely become a street rat and be cursed by everyone. Yun Ba looked at his daughter and grandson without saying a word. His heart was filled with mixed feelings, and he didn't know what to feel. He never thought that one day, the person who would teach his family a lesson would be his own granddaughter. However, what Yun Shang had to do was far from over. He fainted just like that? It's all right. I'll give him a needle. I guarantee that he will wake up immediately. Yun Shang put on a fake smile and was about to pull out the needle. The people from the Wolf Fang hunting corps saw this and instantly felt a chill down their spines. There was only one thought in their mind. They could offend anyone but Yin Yun from the Heaven Expedition Hunting Corps. This method would cause a layer of skin to be peeled off on anyone. How dare you? Yun Sangxue almost vomited blood from anger. Tang Yu, who was pretending to be unconscious in her arms, also trembled. I'm only halfway through the simulation. The part of being strangled to death is considered over. As for the part of hanging himself, I still have to find someone to test it out. Tang Yu is the main culprit. If he doesn't try to make up for his mistake and hang himself once for me to compare, then what can I use to prove Tang Yu's innocence? Yun Shang pointed at the ancient banyan tree calmly. He still had to hang himself once? With his weight, if he really hanged himself once, he would really commit suicide if he failed to save him. Tang Yu couldn't catch his breath. His head tilted and this time, he really fainted. You are so vicious. I'll do as you wish. I'll hang myself in place of my Yuer. Yun Sangxue finally understood that this vicious girl still held a grudge against him and his mother for chasing her out of the Yun residence 2 years ago. She was filled with regret. If she knew that this girl would be so capable today, she wouldn't have given up halfway. She would have found an assassin to kill this bitch directly. Yun Sangxue put down Tang Yu, grabbed the rope, and walked towards the ancient banyan tree. At this moment, she really hoped that her father or second brother would speak up and stop her. However, behind her, there was only silence. No one made a sound. Yun Songlong turned his head away. Yun Ba's eyes darkened, and he was about to say something. On the other side, Yun Sheng said indifferently, "That's good too." Madam's figure is very similar to Miss Xian Yu's. The effect of the simulated hanging is also very similar. When Yun Ba heard this, he looked at the corpse lying not far away. In the end, he couldn't say anything and lowered his eyes. Yun Sangxue had already walked under the ancient banyan tree. Yunxing added, "Let me remind you one more time. In order to make the effect more realistic, you must not use your duki to try to break free from the rope. When it's about time, I will remind you to come down." Yun Sangshue's silver teeth were almost crushed in her mouth. She threw the rope onto the banyan tree and hatefully said in her heart, "Yun Shang, Yun Sangxue, and you are irreconcilable." Yun Sangxue was indeed true to her words. During the entire process of her hanging, she was definitely the best substitute Yun Shang had ever seen. That rope had almost strangled her to death. Until Yun Shang leisurely called out, "You can come down now." Only then did Yunba hurriedly order Uncle Yun to save Yun Sangxue. It's already been strangled and hung. You better have a sufficient reason to clear Yu Er's name. Otherwise, although Yun Shang's actions were to help Tang Yu, there was also a hidden intention to teach the mother and son pair a lesson. How could Yunba not know? In front of so many people, Yun Shang completely disregarded the general's estate's reputation. This made Yunba very unhappy. Old general, don't worry. You will be satisfied with the outcome. Yun Shang kicked Tang Yu awake and let the mother and son pair stand together. You should have seen it. One hanged herself, and the other was strangled to death. Regardless of the shape or the scar, the two people's wounds are completely different. It is clear at a glance which kind of wound Miss Xianyu has. After Yun Shang finished speaking, everyone present looked towards the necks of the two people and the corpse. Previously, everyone didn't understand Yun Shang's meaning. Now that they heard it, everyone uniformly looked over. They saw that Tang Yu's short neck, which was almost connected to her body, had a red circle. Fortunately, Lu Hao didn't really have the intention to kill. Otherwise, Tang Yu's fat pig head would have been directly chopped off. Yun Sangshue's neck. The scar on her neck was concentrated in a certain area near the chin. Looking at Xian Yu's corpse, it was very obvious that her wound was closer to Tang Yu's. The scar was a circle. After a moment of silence, everyone started to discuss spiritedly. Cheng Sihai's face was ugly while Qi Fengfei's expression became more and more serious. The theory of the autopsy that Yun Shang mentioned was never mentioned by anyone in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Cheng Sihai didn't notice it at all when he was doing the autopsy. My poor child, who was so heartless to harm you. Xian Yu's parents cried together. Cheng Sihai rolled his eyes at the side, and a vicious plan came to his mind. Needless to say, Miss Xian Yu was living well and suddenly died. Wasn't it because she was humiliated by Tang Yu? The Yun residents must have killed Miss Xian Yu in order to silence her, and then made it look like she committed suicide. The three people from the Wolf Fong hunting corps and Xian Yu's parents who originally believed that Xian Yu was killed felt that it made sense. Cheng Sihai, you're really shameless to the extreme. You're obviously the one who made a mistake in the autopsy, and now you're making false accusations in order to save your face. Is this the medical ethics of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion? Yun Sheng snorted. She originally wanted to clarify that Xian Yu committed suicide and let the matter rest. But after being provoked by Cheng Sihai, she knew that if they didn't find the culprit today, the matter of the Yun residents would never end. Yin Yun, your analysis just now is very reasonable. But if you can't prove that Tang Yu is innocent, Xian Yu's death will still be related to the Yun residents. We won't let this matter rest. Song Lang admired Yun Shang's special autopsy skills. But he couldn't just rely on this to make Lu Hao give up on revenge. Lu Hao nodded his head and gazed at the dead Xian Yu with deep affection. Yun Shang couldn't help but sigh. Since she had already offended someone today, she might as well be the villain to the end. Lu Hao, let me ask you, no matter who the culprit is, will you still be infatuated with Xian Yu? Lu Hao didn't hesitate at all. Of course, Xian Yu and I are childhood sweethearts. My infatuation with her will never change no matter what. Then I'll ask you one more time. Have you and Xian Yu ever done anything between a man and a woman? Once Yun Shang said those words, Lu Hao's face instantly turned red. Even the faces of the other people beside him all turned crimson red. On the other hand, Yun Shang's face was calm and her expression was very solemn. Chapter 364. This, Vice Commander Yin. Why are you suddenly asking about this? Xin Yu and I haven't gotten married yet, and I'm always away from home. I promise that I'll only marry her when I come back next year. We're innocent, Lu Hao said with difficulty. The identity of the suspect is very clear. He is the father of the baby in Miss Xian Yu's womb. Yun Sheng's words shocked Lu Hao. Xian Yu's father and mother's expressions changed drastically. Cheng Sihai was tongue-tied, and Qi Fengfei was also shocked. On the other hand, a knowing smile appeared on Yi Baiming's lips as he nodded approvingly at Yun Sheng. "You evil woman! How dare you tarnish my daughter's reputation?" When Xinyu's mother heard this, her vision turned black and she fainted. Xinyu's father, on the other hand, was furious. He stepped forward and wanted to fight Yunsheng to the death. Lu Hao's face darkened, and his voice turned cold. "Vice Commander Yan, if you can't give me a reason, I will fight you to the death even if my skills are not as good as yours." "I'm not talking nonsense. When I was examining Xinyu, I noticed that her abdomen was slightly protruding. I pressed it with my fingers, and it did not sink. Look at Miss Xinyu's body. Her limbs are very slender." Yunsheng was very observant. The commoners of the Great Zhou dynasty, because of the influence of the Great Zhou dynasty's martial arts, even the women who did not practice martial arts liked to wear a modified version of the narrow-sleeved, narrow-waisted dress. But when Xinyu was buried in the coffin, she wore a wide-sleeved dress without a girdle. Because of this, ordinary people would not notice that her abdomen was different. How can clothing prove that she is pregnant? There are many women on the streets who like to wear wide-sleeved dresses. Could it be that they are also pregnant? Qi Fengfei raised her eyebrows slightly. She was critical of Yunsheng's words. "As long as we cut open the abdomen and take out the child, the truth will be revealed. Miss Xinyu's fetus already has bones and flesh. It will be at least 4 months. Yunsheng's words came true. Cut open the abdomen to retrieve the baby. The moment Yunsheng's words came out, even Yun Songlong, Yi Baiming, and the others' expressions couldn't help but change. Performing a second autopsy on a dead person was already a big deal. Yunsheng wanted to cut open the abdomen to retrieve the child. Such an act was simply shocking in the boundless continent. Ridiculous. Are you a doctor or not? I've never heard of dissecting a corpse to take out the baby. You don't deserve to be a doctor at all. Cheng Sihai finally got hold of Yunsheng's weakness and jumped up to mock her. Cheng Sihai, as a doctor, you can't even tell if a person is pregnant or not. You're the one who really doesn't know how to treat people. Yunsheng also knew that once she spoke about this matter, it would inevitably lead to criticism. In this era, insulting a corpse was punishable by death. That was why she didn't want to mention that Xianyu was pregnant with Lu Jia. "Yes, we definitely can't let her disgrace my daughter's corpse." Xianyu's mother couldn't stop crying. "Shut up, all of you shut up." Lu Hao was like an angry lion. Under his loud roar, the originally noisy crowd quietened down. "Yin Yun, I'll ask you one more time. Are you sure that Xianyu is pregnant?" If Yunsheng's words were true, and Xianyu hadn't been insulted by Tang Yu 4 months ago, and the child in her stomach wasn't his, then the adulterer was indeed the biggest suspect. Although dissecting a corpse to retrieve the child was shocking and unacceptable, if it wasn't dissected, the person who killed Xianyu would very likely get away scot-free. "Uncle, Auntie." Lu Hao walked in front of the 2 grief-stricken elders and knelt down. Lu Hao is useless and didn't care about Xianyu. "I promise you that if Xianyu isn't pregnant today, I, Lu Hao, am willing to marry her and worship her as my wife for 100 years. If Xianyu is pregnant, Lu Hao is also willing to take her as my godsister and worship her as a family member on Qingming and Doubleyang in the coming year." After he finished speaking, he kowtowed 3 times to the 2 elders. Lu Hao's actions made the 2 elders' eyes wet. In the end, the 2 elders finally nodded in agreement. "Both of you, I also agree. If my judgment this time is wrong and I've disgraced Miss Xianyu's name, I'm willing to accept Zhou State's punishment and never be a doctor again." Yunsheng also spoke. When Cheng Sihai heard this, he was even more bewildered. In reality, he really couldn't tell whether Xianyu was pregnant or not. When he examined her body just now, he was completely relying on his hands and eyes to observe. Cheng Sihai didn't know that not to mention him, even if Wan Deguo personally came to the scene, he couldn't be sure that he could determine whether Xianyu was pregnant or not. This was because the living were different from the dead. Even if the dead had the protection of a magic array that prevented the surface from rotting, their internal organs and skin would have a certain degree of change. Moreover, the doctors in the Boundless Continent, especially those in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, mostly focused on the research of elixirs. As for the structure of the human body, they only stopped at the most superficial observation, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse, which was the traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis method. However, Yun Shang was different. She had learned Western medicine and also had the Shinong eye and Trillium hand. Ordinary doctors in the boundless continent couldn't be compared to her. Although her Shinong eye hadn't reached the third level and reached the stage where she could see the internal organs of a person, she could observe the most minute parts that others couldn't notice. The touch of her hands was also 10 times sharper than that of ordinary people. What others couldn't confirm, she could rely on the combination of her eyes and hands to accurately determine. But Yun Sheng suddenly changed the topic. If what I said just now is all true, then shouldn't great Dr. Chung, who insulted me just now, also be held accountable? You made a mistake in the autopsy and then insulted other doctors. With such moral conduct, how can you still be a doctor? Chung Sihai was speechless. However, the words that had been said were like water that couldn't be taken back. At this moment, he could only pray that Qi Fengfei could protect him. Qi Fengfei's expression sank when she saw Yunxing's provocative stare. She spat out a sentence. If your words are proven to be true, my medicine emperor pavilion will naturally punish Chung Sihai. We'll make him hand over his physician token and never allow him to practice medicine again. What a cunning little girl. Just now, she had said those harsh words in front of everyone. It turned out that she was just trying to force her to make the same promise. Qi Fengfei felt like she was being led by the nose. From the autopsy to the simulation, and then to persuading Xian Yu's parents, the whole process seemed to be forced. However, that little girl had a sense of propriety and had a well-thought-out look. Qi Fengfei's status in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion was extraordinary. It had always been others who listened to her, but today, it was the other way around. This made her very angry, but she couldn't vent her anger on Yun Sheng. Okay. Yun Sheng's eyes flashed, and she took out her scalpel. When they saw Yun Sheng's special tool, the people around didn't show much surprise. However, Chung Sihai and Qi Fengfei had never seen such a tool before. The sharp edge of the scalpel sliced across Xian Yu's pale belly. Xian Yu's parents choked and turned their heads away. When Tang Yu saw the bloody mess, he only felt disgusted. He leaned against the wall and vomited. When Yun Ba saw his grandson's cowardly appearance, his expression became even worse. Chapter 365. However, Yun Sangxue stared at Yun Sheng, watching her every movement that was as smooth as flowing water. Cutting open the abdomen to remove the child should have been a very bloody scene, but when Yun Sheng did it, it did not make people feel nauseous. Every cut of her knife was just right, as if she was cutting a piece of high-quality silk cloth. It's out. Zhou Quan did not avoid it, and was about to move forward, but was stopped by Yun Songlong. Yun Sheng didn't even frown as she carried out a lump of flesh from inside. Although the facial features were not clearly formed, it was indeed the corpse of a baby. My poor daughter. Xian Yu's mother hugged Xian Yu's father and wailed. Lu Hao closed his eyes in pain, but the people of the Yun residence all heaved a sigh of relief. Cheng Sihai sat on the ground dejectedly, and there was only coldness left on Qi Fengfei's face. Little Xiantong, Yun Sheng. This time, they won again. Yun Sheng carefully placed the fetus beside Xian Yu, then rearranged Xian Yu's corpse. After stitching her up, Yun Sheng looked at the serene Xian Yu and said softly, "Don't worry, I will definitely find the murderer." The two leaders of the Wolf Fong hunting corps were embarrassed. They did not expect that the whole incident would cause such a stir in the city, and they almost broke off relations with the Yun residents. Who knew that the truth would turn out like this? Leader Tsang Lang patted Lu Hao's shoulder and walked forward with an apologetic smile on his face. I'm sorry, we were rash in this matter. I represent the Wolf Fong hunting corps to apologize to the Yun residents. A few days ago, we will also compensate the Yun residents for the losses we caused. What's the use of compensating? Can my reputation be restored? Yun Sangxue and Tang Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Sangxue immediately changed her attitude and scolded the hunters and Xian Yu's family. Enough. Third sister. If that brat Tang you didn't make any mistakes, how could he be framed? Also, he has violated the laws of Zhou state by insulting a woman. Even if he wasn't the one who killed Miss Xianyu, he still has to go to the military to receive his punishment. Although Yun Songlong was relieved, he was also very angry at the same time. Yun Songxue still didn't know how to repent. This time, if not for Shang the Yun residents would not have been able to explain themselves even if they had 1,000 mouths. What's more, even if this matter was resolved, there was still no way to resolve the matter of the Bloody Hand Tycoon coming to their door in a few days. Furthermore, this incident had placed the residents of Yun at the forefront of public opinion in the Jade capital. Those people in the imperial court with ill intentions were still waiting for the residents of Yun's weakness. If they wanted to protect the residents of Yun, they still had to hand over Tang Yu and handle the matter according to Zhou state's laws. Only then could they appease the public. Second uncle, you want to send me to be tortured? Tang Yu squeaked a few words and realized that he could actually speak after being choked just now. He had just been cleared of the crime of murder, but he was still going to be sent to be tortured. When the kid heard this, he immediately sat on the ground and started crying like a child. Tang Yu, you have truly disappointed me. Yun Ba watched the farce between the mother and son and felt a surge of anger in his heart. Only now did he realize that what Yun Songlong and Yun Shang had said earlier was completely correct. If Tang Yu continued to act lawlessly, the residents of Yun would sooner or later be in trouble. He hardened his heart and said firmly, Uncle Yun, immediately send the little young master to the military to receive his punishment. Yun Songxue, this time, if you dare to obstruct me again, I will chase both you and your son out of the residence of Yun. Chase them out of the residence of Yun. Tang Yu, who had been acting shamelessly on the ground, was silent. Yun Songshue's face was deathly pale, without a trace of blood. Yun Ba was truly enraged this time. In the past, no matter how big of a mess Tang Yu had made, no matter how many tricks Yun Songxue had pulled behind his back, Yun Ba had never said a word. He had not done that because he was muddle-headed and did not understand. On the contrary, the reason why the residents of Yun had been able to stand tall all these years was because of Yun Ba. He did not seem to care about the affairs of the residents, but through Uncle Yun, he was still very clear about the affairs of the residents. The departure of his eldest son, Yun Songhai, had a huge impact on Yun Ba. He only wanted to support the residents of Yun, so that this family would not fall apart. This was also why he had tolerated them in every possible way. As long as Yun Songxue and Tang Yu did not surpass him, he could pretend not to know. But this time, the mother and son had really gone too far. They had provoked the Bloody Hand Tycoon, insulted a commoner's daughter, and almost caused the foundation of the residents of Yun to be destroyed overnight. Yun Shang's reprimand seemed to be reprimanding Yun Songxue and her son, but in reality, it was also a reminder to him. Third sister, don't force yourself into a dead end. When Yun Songlong saw Yun Songxue, who seemed to have lost her soul, he ordered people to tie up the frightened Tang Yu and send her to the military. Yun Songxue was a smart person. Otherwise, she would not have been able to manage the residents of Yun so well in the past few years. She had been lawless in the past because she knew that her second brother did not like to fight for power, and she had her own father's love. But if Yun Ba chased her out of the residence of Yun, then everything would be over. After leaving the residence of Yun, she was just a female cultivator in her 30s. She also had a spoiled son. Without the protection of her adorable son, she had nothing. Yun Songxue walked into the residence of Yun woodenly. Yun Songlong sighed and asked Uncle Yun to tidy up the mess outside the residence. Yun Ba looked at Yun Shang and could not say anything in the end. He sighed deeply and turned to walk into the residence. Xian Yu's family had already moved the coffin and everything else away. After Lu Hao comforted Xian Yu's parents, he asked a few more questions before walking over. Deputy Commander Yin, thank you for your righteousness. I have already asked, and Xian Yu's younger sister, Xian Pei, said that she has something to tell us. Lu Hao waved at a woman dressed in white linen clothes not far away. The woman was only about 12 or 13 years old and looked very young. However, Her appearance was 70 to 80% similar to the already dead Xian Yu. It was just that her features were more delicate and straightforward than Xian Yu's. When she saw Lu Hao waving at her, she blushed slightly but still walked over and awkwardly greeted them. I roughly know that big sister has someone else outside. Father and mother don't know. Xianpei had not thought of that before. It was only when Yunsheng said that her sister was pregnant that she remembered that her sister seemed to have met a man some time ago. Big sister often went out secretly without telling father and mother. Because it was late at night, no one in the family knew. Xianpei had also advised her sister that she was already engaged and should not be like this. However, she was teased by Xian Yu. She did not understand the relationship between men and women. She said that Lu Hao was a boorish soldier who did not know how to cherish women. She said that she was only concerned about the engagement and did not like Lu Hao at all. When Lu Hao heard this, his expression turned ugly. For Xian Yu's death, he had done his best and even grieved for a long time. He did not expect that her heart was not with him at all. Chapter 366. In that case, have you met your sister's lover? Yunsheng asked again. There was once at night, because I was worried about my sister, I secretly tailed my sister. I followed her all the way to a lotus pond in the south of the city. Xianpei followed her sister all the way to the lotus pond and heard her sister's joyful cries. She vaguely remembered that her sister called that man Sung Lang. Because she was afraid of being discovered by her sister, she didn't dare to get close. From afar, she could only see that the man was wearing a red robe. Red robe? Does the style look like what we're wearing? Yunsheng suspected that the person who killed Xian Yu was most likely a warrior or a magician. Unfortunately, after Xianpei looked at everyone's clothes, she shook her head. She tilted her head and thought for a while. I didn't see that person's face clearly, but I saw that person's clothes very clearly. Because the style was very strange, it was like a lantern, covering the person from head to toe, only revealing the face. Xianpei didn't know anything else after that. Yunsheng and the rest couldn't help but feel disappointed when they heard this. Just a strange red robe couldn't prove anything, and they couldn't find the exact person. In that case, unless Xian Yu came back from the dead, there was no way to find the real culprit. Dr. Yun. Just as they were speaking, Qi Fengfei walked over. After the autopsy, Cheng Sihai left dejectedly, but Qi Fengfei stayed behind. She waited for a moment at the side before walking over. Medicine Man Qi, are you here to fulfill our agreement? Yunsheng had some impression of Qi Fengfei, remembering that she was Wendagua's medicine man. But from the tone of her conversation with Cheng Sihai, it seemed that she wasn't as simple as an ordinary medicine man. This is Cheng Sihai's physician token. From today onwards, he is no longer a physician of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion, and can no longer practice medicine as a physician. Today, in the name of the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion, I'll give you the physician token. Qi Fengfei was indeed true to her words. In her hand was the physician token that Cheng Sihai had spent tens of years to win. It was the physician token of the Four Directions Scattered Doctor. The doctor's card of the Four Directions Doctor was no small matter. It meant that the doctor who held the card could not only practice medicine within the country, but could also legally practice medicine in other countries. Due to the noble status of doctors, especially those above the level of Dr. Ling, they were highly sought after in various countries. The Four Directions Scattered Doctor's plate was equivalent to a pass through the entire continent. No matter which country they passed through, they could waive the toll fee. When a doctor opened a medical clinic, he or she could also reduce part of the country's taxes. Yunsheng naturally wouldn't refuse such a good thing. Then, I'll have to thank Medicine Man Qi. Yunsheng took the doctor's card from Medicine Man Qi's hand. Dr. Yun, I would like to invite you to join the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion in the Jade Capital. As long as you join the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion, we can cooperate with the little Xiantong and remove all the previous obstacles. Qi Fengfei also had some means. She first gave the physician token and then sent an invitation to Yunsheng. She was very clear about the current situation of the little Xiantong. Due to the blockade of the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion, the little enchanting had been relying on the potions to maintain their daily expenses. The last time was an invitation from Medicine Row. This time, it was an invitation from Qi Fengfei. In the past, the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion had sent an invitation to Yunsheng one after another. Moreover, this time, Qi Fengfei's invitation was even more tempting. She didn't even care about the conflict between the little enchanting and the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion. If it was someone else, they wouldn't dare to refuse the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion, the #1 medical clinic in the continent. However, they threw it to the wrong person. It was fine if Qi Fengfei didn't mention it. Once she mentioned it, Yunsheng remembered what the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion did to the little enchanting. Yunsheng wasn't a magnanimous person. On the contrary, she was very vengeful. What Yun Sangxue and her son did to her, she returned it several times over. The Dark Crown Prince schemed against her. She also took revenge on him. Therefore, the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion oppressed her and humiliated Dr. Fan. Yunsheng remembered it all. Qi Fengfei patiently waited for Yunsheng's reply. This time, the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion lost a doctor of the 4 directions. Qi Fengfei didn't feel much regret. Cheng Sihai made too many mistakes during this period of time. He was also one of the higher-ups of the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion. After he was stripped of his qualification as a doctor and left the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion, what awaited him was only a path of death. Qi Fengfei was very interested in Yunsheng's medical skills, as well as her calm mind. Earlier, she thought that Yunsheng was only a genius who was proficient in pill concoction. But today, she realized that this girl wasn't a person with no talent. If possible, she wanted to bring Yunsheng into the core of the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion. However, there was a prerequisite. Yunsheng had to be a member of the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion. Yunsheng smiled. The 2 dimples at the corner of her lips were incomparably vivid. However, the gaze she used to look at Qi Fengfei was ice cold. It doesn't matter. If Dr. Yun changes your mind one day, the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion will still welcome you. However, Fengfei also kindly reminded you that you shouldn't be too ruthless. No matter how heaven-defying your medical skills are, it's impossible for you to stand against the Medicine Sovereign Pavilion alone. There will be a day where you will come and beg us for help. Qi Fengfei's upbringing was also very good. She didn't get angry and instead smiled. After nodding to Yun Songlong and the others, she drifted away. Don't bother about them. The Medicine Sovereign Pavilion is used to being arrogant in the Jade Capital. They always think that all the medical halls in the world are under their control. With young Master Yun's medical skills, why would you need to beg them? After witnessing Yunsheng's actions just now, Zhou Quan was full of admiration for his vice-captain. Young Master Yun was simply too godly. However, Yunsheng felt that her heart was heavy. The matter of the Yun residence had come to an end. However, she didn't feel relaxed at all. Instead, she had a bad premonition, as if something bad was about to happen. After Tang Yu was sent to the law department, news came quickly. According to Zhou State's laws, he was punished and sent to the Gobi Desert in the west for 3 years. This kind of punishment wasn't considered light or heavy. After the punishment was announced, Tang Yu was immediately sent to the northwest. When Yun Sangxue received the news, she had already left the Jade Capital. To Yun Sangxue of the Yun residence, this was a heavy punishment. She couldn't sleep the entire night and couldn't stop crying. That night, Yun Sangxue's maid sent food as usual. When the food was sent in, a vase was smashed. The vase fell to the ground and shattered. The maid was so frightened that she trembled. She begged for mercy. "Third miss, please calm down. You haven't eaten for a few days. If this goes on, I'm afraid your body won't be able to take it. Old Master has instructed us to let Third Miss eat some." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.